The time is 5:46 p.m. I would like to call our budget meeting and work session to order. Mr. Truesdale, could you please call the roll?
Ms. Daniels,
Here.
Ms. Green,
Present.
Mr. Lawson, Mr. Majors,
Here.
Ms. Rose,
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez, Ms. Bowers.
Present. I would like to note for the meeting record that both Councilman Rodriguez and Councilman Lawson are excused from this evening's meeting. You'll see a number of committee business tonight. As I mentioned earlier, we are conducting a work session and our budget hearing all in one shot this evening. So we're going to veer and begin at the end of the agenda with the Public Works Committee. You were last night, but first tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have one bill and one resolution to discuss this evening. So we'll begin with Bill 12 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Bill 12, 2023, an ordinance amending Part 3 of Title 9 of the Codified Ordinances of the City of Harrisburg entitled the Municipal Waste, Recycling, and Composting Code to adjust fees on the collection and disposal of residential municipal solid waste, and further provide for a technical amendment regarding the imposition of interest charges on certain obligations owed the city.
Thank you. Good evening. I just want to review what's shared in the bill just for everybody's reference before we talk about the contents. Okay, so the City of Harrisburg is empowered to enact and enforce ordinances that govern and regulate sanitation practices within the city consistent with the Solid Waste Management Plan for Dauphin County as approved by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, the Pennsylvania Solid Waste Management Act, and the Pennsylvania Municipal Waste Planning, Recycling, and Waste Reduction Act, and thereby ensure the best delivery of sanitation services to the community. Pursuant to Section 12409 of the Third Class City Code, City Council is authorized to establish, alter, charge, and collect rates and other charges for the collection, removal, and disposal of municipal waste. The current rate for the collection of residential municipal solid waste was set at $156 per annum through adoption of an ordinance number 6 of 2006. The rate for the disposal of residential municipal solid waste was set at $232 per annum through the adoption of ordinance number 20 of 2007, and increased to the current rate of $232.08 per annum through the adoption of ordinance number 7 of 2018. So the Council of the City of Harrisburg finds that increased costs and expenses associated with all aspects of the collection and disposal of municipal solid waste makes it necessary to raise the collection and disposal charges for residential municipal solid waste. So this is a technical, it's an amendment that is technical and updates the rate per the provisions of the city code. So I just wanted to note how we got here and what ordinances precipitated these changes. So if you wouldn't mind sharing on your end what's happening here.
Okay. Good evening, Council. The rates as far as Loxwama continues to increase throughout the years, and as of 2024, the rate will go up to $230.84 per ton.
That's 2023.
Oh, that's okay. $238 per ton. It's gonna go up to 24. The recycling rate, which in 23 is $55 a ton being charged to our city, will go up to $75 a ton in 2024. And because of the rates that have continually increased, then we have to find a way to continue to pay the rates.
Okay. Just looking at the section 9-303.4, where it notes rates for municipal waste services, subsection B1, it's under collection rates. Residential property utilizing carts, it moves from $156 to $159.23 per year. It also moves from $13 to $14.25 monthly per cart for once a week collection of up to 95 gallons of municipal waste not weighing in excess of 160 pounds. The next change is also section 9-303.4, rates for municipal waste services. This is subsection C, discussing disposal rates. Subsection C1 notes residential dwelling units of 4 units or less. The rate moves from $232.08 to $255.84 per year per cart, and $19.34 to $21.32 monthly for once a week disposal of up to 95 gallons of municipal waste not weighing in excess of 160 pounds. Okay. I don't have any immediate questions. I'll open the floor to my colleagues. They may have some additional questions for you. I'll begin with Councilwoman Daniels. Any questions?
Yes, and you probably may have answered some already during the budget hearings. No? Oh, okay. So the first question is, are the increased fees to us the sole justification for the increased rate in this ordinance, or were there other expenses and other costs that are included in the raise?
Yes, there are increases. There are increases of fuel maintenance, increases of vehicle maintenance, center maintenance to maintain our equipment, which is our trash and recycle trucks. The maintenance cost has risen dramatically, and due to the backlog of ordering parts and steel factors, that we have to pay higher prices for our parts for our equipment as well.
Okay. It would be great if you're able to kind of give us a sense of what those distinctions are, since when it comes to fees, we have to be very precise with how we raise them. The other question I have is, how does this impact the contracts we have with neighboring municipalities? Does this mean that in some way we're subsidizing the expenses that we incur as a relationship to that, or vice versa, they're subsidizing us? How will it work?
The contracts for the other 3 entities are all up for renewal negotiation next year. In 2020, they'll expire, and we move forward through them. I think 1 in July and 2 in December, I believe. So there's no direct relationship with them. But if you just look at, since 2006, we've had the same internal rate for the city. The cost of the fleet, which we've replaced almost twice now, the cost of the union contracts for sanitation workers and everyone there has gone up significantly over all that time. And we've just sort of borne that cost. There has been a very vigorous debate from 2 different parts of the world that we deal with. One is that ICA believes that there should be a surplus in neighborhood services fund. Private sector folks who have sued us think that the neighborhood service fund should be less. You know, that we can't. They're arguing it's a tax and not a fee, and so we've been at that debate for 10 years since receivership, with no resolution in either direction. So I mean, there's more than one view of it. But if you just take the year-over-year budget for neighborhood services from when they created the fund, which I think is 2015, and then you take it to where it is going in 2024, the percentage increase is enormous. And that's, so I'm gonna say, I'm not sure it has to be precise. I think they came up with a number that would stop them from going to projected deficit. Mr. Hartman isn't here tonight, but I think he can confirm that for you on Tuesday. And I think that was the driver of this, is to stop it going into deficit level where taxpayers are then otherwise supporting the fund.
So then for 2024 through July and then through December, I guess when does this go into effect? Sorry, I should
This
have
goes
paid closer
July,
attention.
January 1,
Of 20.
24. Yep.
24. So from January 2024 through July, sorry. Like my concern when we're raising fees is that fees have to very precisely match the cost. Otherwise, there's an argument that anything in excess of that is an illegal tax. So I want to make sure that we are articulating all of the reasons that warrant raising this fee. And when we have two other contracts with with two other municipalities setting rates per the previous rate, like I would like to be clear on what happens with that, like 6 months from June to July and then, January to July and then.
Each of those rates were negotiated contractually, and they also have their own ordinances in their municipalities, which we had to do it through the intergovernmental agreement, and we have to follow those. So in my view, they're not connected. I mean, the question when we took them on is, we did expand the number of people at Public Works and the vehicles,
Right.
and, but that was something where there was a cash flow generated to take that part of it. But the vast majority of our money goes to, our own operations, which are 7 days a week. For that is 1 day a week for the other ones. And but Mr. Hartman, I think, can give you. He's the numbers guy, he really is, and he is not here tonight. He couldn't be here tonight, but he will be here on Tuesday and could answer these in detail with you. And if you request to their office to get the written calculus, but it is my understanding it's to prevent it from going to deficit, and then we would be subsidizing things.
All right.
So.
Yeah. Okay. And those are it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
Thank you. And just as our solicitor noted, and so as President Powers, excuse me, the actual rate for collection has not increased, and correct me if I'm wrong, since 2006, correct?
Correct, 2006, it's been the
Right.
same rate.
Right. While our tipping fees continue to increase, I think so long as there's justification, having previously served as public works chair and know all the work that you all are doing, and the new budget does reflect all the different, we break out all of our other contracts, so the funding that we're looking to collect from this is, can you just talk a little bit about how much that impact looks like on a monthly bill for a resident? So we're going from $32.34 to what per month?
What
Yeah.
is the increase?
Yep.
Was
$3.23 a month.
323, so 32, 34, 35,
35.57, I believe.
57.
57. Right. So yeah, $3 and change a month. I mean, for something that hasn't increased in 17 years, I think, as long as it's covering our expenses, I don't think we're going to have. I think we have enough justification to show for the work that is being done by our public works folks. So I just wanted to make that comment, and no additional questions at this time. Thank you, President Bowers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you. I don't really have any questions at the moment. I'd like to see the calculus just to make for sure that, that we are making sure that all of our fees are covered. That if we're going to raise this, let's make for sure that it covers what we need to cover, so we don't find ourselves in the same position next year, coming back saying, well, prices went up and we need to raise it again. Let's just make for sure that we've got the calculus right and we've got the numbers right, so we can just get it done and make for sure that we are supporting our Public Works Department and the services of the city. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers, and good evening to you both again, and thank you for being here. No, my question was also what the monthly bill was going to look like with the increase, and that's been answered, so no questions for me.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I move to add Bill. Oh, I'm sorry.
One other point, I'm sorry.
Councilman Majors?
Could you, are you aware of what any of the municipalities surrounding us are charging? Is this rate competitive in comparison to surrounding municipalities? So, folks that aren't under the service of the city, so are, your Susquehanna townships, other communities, are they paying roughly the same amount? Or are other trash collection providers charging higher rates than what we're looking to do? Just trying to make sure that folks don't think we're trying to gouge our city residents.
Okay, two-part answer to your question. Our rate for the incinerator versus other entities pay a lot lower than we do. So we have to have that rate to be competitive to at least, as Neil stated, to stay afloat. And we have some numbers. We did, excuse me, get some statistics of the boroughs and townships who pay at the incinerator at Loxwama also. It's around the area of what we pay. They pay a little less, but they're charged a lot less than we
Okay. I think just before a vote, I guess will be next Tuesday, if we can just get with some of the surrounding municipalities that what their collection fees are, just so we just have a better picture of what we're charging, where our residents are paying versus what those are doing. I think that would just be helpful for members of the community and for myself. So
We'll
thank
have
you.
that for you by
Yep, by next week. Yep, before the vote. Yep. All right, thank you.
And I had done an informal survey of neighboring neighborhoods, and they kind of range between like late 20s to mid 30s when you count monthly. But that was an informal one. So if you have a formal,
Just a formal analysis. Just some of our surrounding municipalities. I think that would just help to show. Look, asking for a fee increase one time in 17 years, I don't think. Most of us are getting increases in all of our monthly bills one way or another. So I just want to see it as a comparison.
Yes, we'll have that for you next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just want to review the ask. So the ask of both Councilwoman Daniels and Councilman Majors, and then the fee calculations to ensure that this is basically a one-time increase that Vice President Green requested.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councilwoman
I
Rawls?
just had one quick question. Something that was said that made me think of one. I think you said, Director West, that sometimes, or we do pay more for our trash disposal to Lackawanna. I was wondering why.
This is part of the agreement of if I'm not mistaken, Neil, part of the agreement of the sale of the incinerator.
And that's what I thought. Okay. I didn't know if I was correct. So that's still,
Yeah, it's a 20-year contract under a court order. And
Okay.
it has, after it set the fees at certain rates at the beginning, and then I forget what year, it hit just CPI. So Consumer Price Index is how it's reset for the remainder of the contract.
that's what I thought. I just kind of wanted it said again. I think it was important to revisit, since not that our trash bills will go up a lot, but just to point out why we still do pay more than other municipalities. Just to come around and say it again. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, I move to add Bill 12 of 2023 to our next legislative session agenda for a vote. We have one resolution for discussion, Resolution 90 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 90, 2023, a resolution to enter into a master services agreement with Barton and
Bartlett and Judas.
Lejudas DPC for engineering, technical assistance, and consulting services for various projects supporting the Department of Public Works. I apologize.
Thank you. What information would you like to share regarding this agreement, Finney?
This agreement actually stems from, we need to create formulas going into the next contracts for the boroughs that Neil stated that the new contracts would negotiated next year. They helped us in negotiating our last contracts.
Okay. I see that the terms for the agreement, it shall terminate on December 31st, 2025. And the parties may extend the agreement by an additional 1-year term, executed in writing by duly authorized representatives of each party.
Madam President, if I may,
Yes.
on the legal side,
Mhm.
this is the second Barton and Lagunas master agreement, so the other one you approved was in 2018.
Okay,
Same model where it's a master agreement where tasks can be added, which we've done with other engineering
right,
contracts.
I remember that.
So there's only one task at the moment, which is to help and assist with the data gathering for the negotiations and formulating of, with Steelton and the other boroughs. But as needs arise, Mr. Snow does have to stay involved in the sense that he's the city engineer, but most of the city engineer's work comes under traffic engineering and not the structural. And so these folks have guided in the past when other issues came up at times. So I don't think there's an imagine what would they do in 2025 or 2026. I think it's having the agreement, and there'd have to be a assigned task order to add it, and there'd have to be a budgeted line item to fund it.
Okay,
So basically, it's having the tool for Public Works to use.
okay, thank you for that clarification. In reference to payment, which is section 4, it notes that the city approves additional compensation for additional services with a do not exceed total of $130,000. I don't notice anything else that's of question to me. I'll open the floor to my colleagues. I'll begin with Councilwoman Rawls. Any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers, and I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you. I don't have any questions.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
No questions. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. All right. If there's no further discussion, I move to add Resolution 90 of 2023 to our next legislative session for a vote. Thank you both for being here again tonight.
Thank you.
Okay, so we will now move to the work of the Administration Committee. We have a few resolutions for discussion tonight. We'll begin with Resolution 85 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 85, 2023, a resolution ratifying the submission of a Pennsylvania Local Share Assessment Grant application of up to $1 million from the Commonwealth Financing Authority to fund renovations of the Martin Luther King Jr. City Government Center at 10 North 2nd Street, Harrisburg, PA 17101.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Vollmer. If you wouldn't mind providing an overview of this resolution?
Yes, sure. Thank you so much. So this is an application that we submitted on November 30th for funds to support the renovation efforts to the MLK building, the first floor, bathrooms, council chambers, the atrium. The super quick overview of what we're looking to provide. Working on the ground floor, the atrium, installing slip-resistant flooring, widening the stalls, reconstructing the walls and electrical systems, to allow for installation of ADA amenities for the bathrooms. Updates to the atrium itself to install automatic door openers and ADA compliant sort of higher countertop information and help desk. For council chambers, installing wider walkways, upgrading the atrium's IT infrastructure so that we can broadcast council meetings actually also outside, so folks can, if seating inside is already taken up, folks can sit outside. Creating seating areas in the atrium that folks can sit and watch those broadcasts, allowing for sort of fixing the entrances into the atrium and into council chambers, so folks can get in more, especially for ADA. Installing security walls around the receptionist, remote control access button to lock doors quickly if something happens and something is needed, and to improve the reception area's line of sight to folks who are coming in from outside. And then also there's the idea that the atrium space is kind of underutilized, and maybe we could do more with that. And this is an idea that I think has been long in the making, that we would love to be able to create like an incubator for small businesses and folks who can come in and create almost like a sort of a pop-up, sort of help them to create their brand and have the benefit of all the public folks coming in from outside. I would love a breakfast sandwich place. I know that's just me, it's totally super selfish. But so there are all these different things that have been in the making, and so we have a very specific and very detailed design from Chris Dawson from 2019, and also a cost estimate. We've been applying for money for this project for quite a while. We have $145,000 in a 2023 Dauphin County Gaming Grant. We applied for another $300,000 for the 2024 Dauphin County Gaming Grant. We're hopeful that that will be awarded. This particular grant application is for the statewide local share, and the local share, it's also supported by gaming grant, by gaming funding. It's only the second year that the state has done a local share program like this. So we're applying, we're permitted to apply for up to $1 million, which is what we have done. I think we expect the overall project cost to be quite a bit more than that. So we're just gonna kind of keep cobbling together funding like we do for everything that we do. And this is just the next piece in that puzzle. And so when we applied on November 30th, the application required a resolution from City Council. However, thankfully, they allowed us to submit a draft of what that would look like, which is what we submitted as part of the application. And then the expectation is then, once we had the resolution actually approved by council, then we would send that to them. So that's kind of where we are here.
Thank you. If you wouldn't mind reviewing the projected schedule and the key milestones and dates that are outlined in the application?
Yes, so the project schedule as it is now, and it changes as we go, we expect pre-construction development to occur by the end of June 2024, and the restroom demolition and the construction of temporary walls, because this all kind of has to occur in stages, should be done by end of July 2024. Relocation of City Council physical support systems, only a week, and I know they're going to try to move that as fast as they can, in July 2024. Reconstruction of the restrooms with all the ADA standards, August, September 2024. Demo of City Council chambers, I almost hate to say it while I'm sitting in City Council chambers, sorry. 3 weeks, October 2024. Renovation of council chambers, 2 months, November, December 2024. And demo and remodel of the first floor, kind of everything kind of back together again, 4 weeks in January of 2025. And for more specific questions and more specific details, I would refer you to Dave Baker, the head of facilities and capital projects, but this is what I understand from, yeah.
Thank you. I'll open the floor to questions from my colleagues. I'll begin with Councilwoman Rawls. Any questions?
Thank you, President Barris. I only had a question of where would we have meetings at when they're demoing? I was just wondering. I don't know.
You could meet in my office, but it's very small. I don't, I'm so sorry, I don't have
That's
the
all
answer to
right.
that question.
Okay. I was just wondering.
Yeah, no,
Other than that, no, none. I didn't know if there was a whole plan for that, so I thought it'd be a good time to ask.
no, it's.
That's it for me.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
No, at this time, I don't have questions. We're ratifying this, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
No, same with Vice President Green. This is a ratification. You know, we're already looking to move forward. I think we already have some of the other matching funds we're looking to continue to cobble together, so good.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
No questions.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for joining us. I move to add Resolution 85 of 2023 to our next legislative session for a vote. Next, we have Resolution 87 of 2023, Resolution 88 of 2023, Resolution 89 of 2023, and Resolution 91 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read them into the record?
Resolution 87, 2023, a resolution appointing Mr. Ernest Baltimore Jr. to serve on the Environmental Advisory Council. Resolution 88, 2023, a resolution appointing Ms. Catherine Scott to serve on the Environmental Advisory Council. Resolution 89, 2023, a resolution appointing Ms. Rafika Muhammad to serve on the Environmental Advisory Council. And Resolution 91, 2023, a resolution appointing Ms. Pamela Parson to serve on the Environmental Advisory Council.
Thank you very much. I believe all four of our appointees are present. If you wouldn't mind joining us to answer a few questions. Good evening again to everyone. Before we begin with our questions, I just want to remind everyone of the Environmental Advisory Council. It's been a while since we've had some appointments, so just bear with me for a moment. Pursuant to Ordinance Number 6 of 2018, the Environmental Advisory Council, or more commonly referred to as the EAC, was reorganized in order to better carry out the mission of providing information and as a forum for discussing environmental issues impacting the city of Harrisburg. Pursuant to Section 2-509.2 of the Codified Ordinances of the City, the EAC shall be comprised of 7 volunteer members, of which 3 are appointed by the mayor and 4 are appointed by City Council. EAC members must be residents of the city. EAC members are appointed to serve a term of 3 years unless otherwise removed. And just so for everyone's reference, the 3-year terms for all 4 of these potential appointees, their term would begin January 1st, 2024, and they would serve through January 1st of 2027. So we'll just begin. If you all wouldn't mind just taking a few minutes to introduce yourselves, and then we'll ask you some other questions.
Good evening, Council. My name is Rafika Muhammad. I am a native of Harrisburg, born and raised here. And thank you for the opportunity of participating on the Environmental Advisory Council. As I was driving down here this evening, I was thinking about all the things that's been going on in the city, and I've been doing a lot of this work which didn't have titles that we talk about today since the middle 80s. So I smile when I see a lot of the things that are happening in the city, not knowing that some of the things that I was doing that when I look at now have taken into fruition. So personally, that makes me feel very good, and it also makes me feel that people are listening and they do want to make a change in our city. Like I said, I'm born and raised here. I'm a mother of 10 children, 5 girls and 5 boys. I'm a grandmother of close to 40 grandchildren, and I'm a great-grandmother to 8 great-grandchildren, which most of them do live in our city. I can't think of anything too much else that I want to share. I'm a permaculture instructor, which I have back in 2012 and in 2015, certified 26 people in 3 counties in our area in certified instruction. So that means what they can do is go and educate and train other people and certify them as well in permaculture design and instruction. I also presently serve on the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection Advisory Board, which is a state board. I'm serving my 3rd term, and it's very, very educational, and look forward and always have been bringing resources to our city that can help us as far as environmental areas, as far as sustainability, looking at illegal dumping. Yes, that's one of my pet peeves, and some other issues that really can help us and also impact our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Pam Parson. I am a native of this area, graduate of Central Dauphin High School and American University in Washington, D.C. I have lived in the city since 1981. I'm a birder, and I am a frequent bird walk leader at Wildwood. Right now I'm sort of as needed, but there was a period of time in which I did that regularly, and also participating in Christmas bird counts in areas of the city, Reservoir Park, the ponds at Bellevue Park, Hack, Wildwood. Those were all parts of my territory. I'm also a native plant and tree enthusiast. I ran the native plant sales for many years at the Ned Smith Center. I also have participated in their Saw Wet Owl banding project for about 15 years. I'm on hiatus right now, but since my husband and I are retiring, there will be time to do that again next season. And I'm a big picture person. I see how all the things fit together: the air, the water, the plants, the trees, the birds, the animals, the insects. And I think that's probably one of the keys that I bring to the group.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I am Catherine Scott. I left Harrisburg in the 1998, and I lived in Maryland. Maryland was a community that needed a lot of improvement in their environment. I lived on the shore of Turner Station. We made a lot of improvement in that community. Our conservation team brought in business owners to do some of the improvements that we made in our community. I'm also a pastor's wife, so I was well known in my community. I was a substitute teacher. I was on the board of social services. It was so many things that I did that I can't even remember the things that I'd done. But one day, my life changed completely after I served for 6 years on Baltimore County Extension Board. And I learned a lot about some of the things that was affecting our communities, our environment, our children, our diets, everything. So I decided that I had a vision that God told me to transform our community one child at a time. We started it by going out into the community, planting flowers, planting gardens, starting gardens. And then it reached a tipping point for me when I was looking for grant money. I was at one of my Master Gardens meeting, and an intern from, let me see, an intern from John Hopkins School of Public Health came in with a grant. And that was just the money that I needed to start the garden for the kids. And from there, we started a food and faith project. I was on that board for 4 years. And in 2015, my life changed a little bit because my mother was ill and I had to come back to Harrisburg. She died in 2015. I moved back to Harrisburg in 2016 to be closer to my family. We bought a house, and I started using my passion because I was also kind of semi-retired. And I became a garden manager at a housing project in Susquehanna Township. And I decided that I wanted to be certified as a master gardener in Pennsylvania. That was in 2018. Since then, I have been on their advisory for the Seed to Supper program, trying to teach people how to grow a portion of their foods and reduce their budget a little bit. I'm also connected with some of the community gardens here in the city, the Bridge and the Hill. I offer my experience as a master gardener to educate the children and adults that might want to know how to improve their landscape. I plant native plants, I plant perennials, and I grow a portion of my own food, and I have also had a plot up at Elwinton since 2016. I still do that. I am very passionate about improving our environment because I've been seeing the changes for too long. Our earth is warming up too fast. I went out today to dig my garbage in a hole. I tried to recycle everything, and the ground was not frozen, and I dug about 10 inches deep. I said, this is not normal for December the 13th. We had snow by now. So I know that we need to do something to educate our community, and we need to do it with a sense of urgency. I've heard how the public works have to increase the amount of trash that we're trying to get rid of. We have to teach our community how to recycle some of the food waste. It improves the soil very much. I use no fertilizer on none of my plants. And so these are just little footprints that we can make to make a difference in our community, because our carbon footprint is getting really big right now. And I think if I'm on the advisory board, my role as a master gardener will also be to bring science-based knowledge and education to our community, because I'm a volunteer there also.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
My name is Pete Baltimore. I'm a lifelong resident of the city of Harrisburg, like Rafika Muhammad, who actually recruited me to my present place of employment about 1.5 years ago. She recommended that I attend a meeting and meet the director of the recycling center, who at that time was Keith Kepler. And I met him and we spoke and told him I was interested in working with him, and he hired me. So I thank you, Rafika, for recommending that I come to that meeting. I also am a big picture thinker like Ms. Parsons. I have basically a law enforcement background. I'm a retired state trooper from '84 to 2007. Most of my years were spent in the forensic unit. I also served Dauphin County as Judge Cherry's court clerk and court crier. I then transitioned over to the Sheriff's Department and served with them for 3 years, and then retired again. And like I said, was recruited by Ms. Muhammad, and I'm glad she recruited me because, you know, let me just set aside and say this. I was also Boy Scout leader for 22 and a half, maybe 23 years. And one of the most important things we did when we always went into the natural environment, the woods, our motto was, unspoken motto, but it was a well understood motto, leave no trace. Leave no trace that we were ever there. You know, you don't want to affect the environment in a negative way. So I grew up watching nature shows with my mom and dad. Always loved them. Still watch them now. My kids love them, I guess, because I always had them on. And I just see, again, the impact that we're having on our planet. Our planet is dying. And we're killing it. It's us. It's man. You know, those climate deniers, they can say what they want, but they can't deny the weather changes, the extremes that we're experiencing. Like she said, she's digging into the earth 10 inches December 13th. That's unheard of. That's unheard of. That's not normal. We have to do something to impact our environment, to restore our planet to what it is supposed to be. I'm currently working in the Dauphin County Recycling Center as an environmental enforcement officer, and my focus is illegal dumping. I work in close conjunction with the city of Harrisburg. I actually work with them 4 days a week. Today, every Wednesday, which is Harrisburg City's trash pickup day, I'm in the warehouse at the recycling center. So I was there today and helping out there, taking in items for recycling, plastics, styrofoam, cardboard, electronics. You know, it is a great need that we have to properly address this situation. We're a consumer nation, and we waste so much, but we don't properly dispose of it, and we need to address that.
Thank you so much. I normally ask board or council appointees what impact they hope to make through their service. But I think with your introductions, you all spoke about your background, your expertise, and what you can bring to this council. So thank you for that. I'll now open the floor to my colleagues who may have some additional questions. I'll begin with Councilwoman Daniels. Any questions?
This is more for the solicitor. From what I see, the resolution for Ms. Parson is missing.
No, it was added today.
Was it? Okay. And then just broadly, if each one of you could identify potential areas of potential conflicts of interest. Potential areas of conflicts of interest.
I'm not sure I understand the
I
question.
understand. What are my areas of
Yeah, is there anything you're engaged in now that could potentially conflict with your role on the EAC?
I don't know. I don't understand that part.
Okay.
How will it conflict if you're doing good in the community? What does that look like? Can you give me an example?
If you were at waste management every day, you know, and your job was to do what your boss told you with what your waste was, and your this job on the board is to do otherwise. So that's the kind of conflict this kind of board would have.
I own my own personal business too.
Okay.
I teach people how to grow flowers, plants, and herbs, any kind of plants. I can plant trees too.
Thank you. And then, Mr. River, for so there are 3 seats still vacant, right?
Yes, the board had basically gone dormant during COVID, and the appointments all expired, so there's 3 mayoral appointments still to be had.
And is for quorum, or I don't remember what the quorum was.
I don't remember. I
Okay.
will look, but I think so, but I think there's only one board where it's not the majority, so.
Okay. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors?
Thank you, and thank you all for your willingness to serve. We are always looking for residents to step up to the plate and serve on all the different boards and commissions and councils that we do have. As President Bowers noted, you guys really, in your introductions, talked a lot about what you look to do. I guess in terms of the education and outreach, I guess if you could give an example of something that you would want to do serving on the EAC to get more outreach to our residents. I think a lot of you in your personal lives are already doing a lot of great work. Can you talk about efforts that you can do to reach further into our community to have people engage with the EAC?
One of the things that I think y'all all heard us all say, and I hear y'all say the same thing, is educating our community about a lot of what we're talking about. Back in 2020, I got awarded the Myra Lord Dock Award. That award I did give to the city of Harrisburg to plant trees in Reservoir Park to reduce stormwater damage that's happening up in the park. We have a beautiful park, but it's also a vector to some of the homes that are I want to say down the hill from that park. There's nothing absorbing the water. It's just a straight shot. It's like hitting concrete, and like hitting glass, and it just goes right down the hill. So one of the things that I did was, and I came to council and shared that with y'all and told y'all can have my award. And the goal was to plant trees in a certain area in Reservoir Park. And one way to engage in a community, to really get people to understand a little bit about why we need trees, because as y'all know, our community they have their own feelings about trees, but to turn it into a memorial. We've lost a lot of people in our city through violence, through COVID, unfortunately through police killings. And to get community members to understand about the importance of trees, giving them trees where they can either plant in the park, in the memorial, or they can plant on their property. I have given out some trees already. I want to say about 50, but what I found out is when I gave them to loved ones in the community, and I did a lot of, and some of y'all came to some of the events that I did, they were very attached to the tree, and that's what I wanted, but I needed them to understand it has to go on the ground. They can't take it home. But we did go through a whole educational process. One of the Parks and Recreation Director, Mr. Sanders, was there the one day that I had one of the classes up in the park. And it was just the resources that's there, the leaves, the branches, the trees, things that was there that we can use, and showing people how you can use right within your own area and take care of your tree. Now, unfortunately, they didn't do what I asked them to do. But the key point is that there was a connection. So I do want to start again in the spring of 24. We're looking at about 100 trees. Pam and I are working on some things. I will be putting information out there again to the community about the Memorial Garden up in Reservoir Park. And again, show them and share with them. I give them little booklets, what type of trees they have. We sit down, and for me, it's for the person that I am teaching, I want you to be hands-on. You're doing this as well. I'm just guiding you. So, and we have the street trees, so we are city appropriate with the trees, because we wanted to make sure everything was in order. But that's one of the ways that we can definitely connect and reach people. We have to reach them where they are, and we also have to reach community people about, I'm just going to say what's right and what's wrong. And I'm going to give you one more quick example. There's also a program that's written, and again, some of you council members know a couple years ago when the EAC was active, myself and another woman named Sharice Gray have written a program for teaching people how to use brooms. People don't realize brooms are used different ways. There's all kinds of brooms. But I did see a young woman one day in my community. She was swept her house. She swept the debris out on her porch, and that debris went down the steps. She took that same broom and swept her outside environment, but she never picked up the trash because she thinks the city, you know, when they come, they're going to collect the trash. We cannot tell that woman that she did wrong because in her mind, I'm cleaning my house, I'm sweeping, I'm doing all the things, but there were some things that are missing. And we should really never use our indoor broom to be outside and our outside broom to come in. You're cross-contaminating and you're contaminating your home. And with all we got going on right now with all these diseases and infections, we need to be mindful of those things. So it's things like that that I feel that not only just being on the EAC, but I kind of do that anyway. Educating our community about how we can really take care of not just the global environment, but your human environment is very, very important. Where you live, where you sleep, your kitchen, your bathroom, just expanding our minds. I sit here and listen as well as far as public works. And it kind of saddens me because some of our trash can be recycled. The city can be using our cardboard in certain areas, on our playground, putting mulch on it, all kinds of stuff. I do all that stuff. But we're not thinking that way as a municipality. So again, it's just training our community, using water bottles. I did that years ago, how to grow food out of those. Training our community how we can take our trash and make it productive. And it is fun. I do put out there this work with families, not so much as individuals. Sometimes I get overwhelmed because people do bring their whole family, and it's all good. That happened to me this year at Martin Luther King. Like I was a little taken aback, but everybody learned how to grow collard greens. One little thing, how we can recycle, how we can build our own soil. I don't buy soil, I build soil. So it's little things like that, but it's just getting people involved and getting them their hands dirty. We're getting dirty. And when they walk away, when you talk about how are we impacting people, people will let you know if they've been impacted. You know this community. They'll let you know if they like a project or they like a thing or they don't. And so far, I've just really been having a good opportunity that people are listening and they want to make change and they do want more, but it's more now than what I can handle. So as working as a unit, I think we could really make a serious difference in our city on how we educate our people about our trash, how we recycle, worms, the whole gambit, birds, all of that plays a part, and we have it right here. We can make some changes.
I won't spend a whole lot of time talking about trees, since Rafika did, but I just wanted to say that I am part of the 10 million tree project through Chesapeake Bay Foundation. So the work that we've been doing with trees in the last 2 years has been through that. And there are 2 more rounds of free trees coming this year in 2024 and next year and the following year in 2025. So we actually have 4 more opportunities to get free trees to residents here in Harrisburg. And we have been already cross-referencing them with, they're all native trees, but cross-referencing them with the city street tree list. So it's the appropriate tree for the appropriate place, which is not what the funders were thinking of in the grand scheme of 10 million trees. They weren't thinking about urban areas, but also just the idea of there are certain trees you can plant really well in containers. So I've experimented with that the last few years, and you can create your own little wetlands in your own, in a container in your own little postage stamp backyard in the city, and you're still providing habitat, you're still providing space for pollinators. And I think it's important to say that sometimes you can also provide beauty. And I say that because in urban areas, and especially in marginalized and poor communities, beauty is not something that we think about, but everyone deserves green space and everyone deserves beauty. And so one of the ways of being able to give people the opportunity to do that. And also, I'm an ambassador for Capital Region Water, so looking at the intersection of stormwater management and what we plant in our yards or what we pave or where our trash gets dumped, all of that is connected. I'd also like to educate city residents on wildlife. Just because it's outside your door doesn't mean that it's bad. You know, not everything is a rat, and not everything needs to be treated like a rat. Correct. Like opossums, that's a really important mammal to have. They eat tens of thousands of ticks per year, and tick-borne diseases are moving into urban areas. So that's something that we need to help people understand. Need to help people understand the devastating effects of letting your cats be outdoors. New study came out this week about their effect on wildlife, not just birds, but mammals and insects. We need all of these things to work together in order to have a healthy environment. And just like Rafika often focuses on children getting their hands dirty, I want to help children understand how to relate to mammal and insect life. Like, we don't just kill a bee. Yes, there are people who are allergic to bees, but we need bees. So those are the sorts of aspects of the bigger picture that I'm looking at.
I agree with you both. Those are projects that we definitely can advise our community on. And with my foot in the door with Penn State Master Garden Program, we have plenty of classes that we can educate them with. We got master gardeners that are new mentees and trainees that need to do some volunteer work. So all of these things that we need to do to engage our community and improve in our community can be done in a collective impact. I think that's the word I want to use. We need to make a collective impact and use all the talents and gifts that we have in this community to make that happen, because a healthy community is a partnership. Everybody has to work together. I want to share this here one partnership that I had before I was interrupted and when my mother got sick. And Rafika, you might like this. I'm going to give this one to you. When you plant trees as a permaculture person, you could also plant flowers and vegetables underneath the trees too. That can be done, you know? I know how to do that too. So I just think we just got to put our egos to the side and we got to start running to make some improvements in our community. Because if we if we just talking the talk and not walking the walk, our bees are dying. All our pollinators, our birds are dropping. There are increased numbers of diseases that are coming on us because we're just not taking care of our environment. You know, it's just diseases come from stuff that shouldn't be there. So I just think collectively we got a big job to do. And we all have lived experience and knowledge and passions that needs to be put to the test.
I don't really have anything to add. I think it's going to be a heck of a learning experience for me just to work with these ladies. You know, as far as education goes, again, I go back to leave no trace. I mean, you know, we would tell the Boy Scouts, look, man, don't kill that mouse, or don't kill that whatever. You know, don't kill it. This is his environment. We're encroaching on his environment. We're visitors. He lives here. You know, there was a joke out. The monkey lives here. You visiting, we're visiting. We're encroaching on their space. Okay, and as far as being indigenous, we're all indigenous. But we have to respect the environment. We have to respect the environment, or we'll lose the environment. So,
All right. Thank you for your very thoughtful answers. No further questions.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
Well, thank you all. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for your willingness to serve. Having been on a board before, it takes a lot of time, it takes dedication, and it takes true passion. I can tell that all of you all have the true passion to do it. I don't have any questions. I think you guys kind of covered everything that I could think of. But I do thank you for being here and for being so willing to serve the city of Harrisburg. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions?
Thank you, President Bowers. Thank you for each of you coming and being willing to serve. As Vice President Green said, I've already learned a ton just sitting here listening to you that I didn't even know. So I don't think the question is, do you have what it takes, or are you willing, but when can you start? I think that you're going to definitely bring a lot to the city, and especially that education piece, because you don't know what you don't know. I say that all the time because it's very true. And Ms. Parsons brought up something important, and it also made me think about something Ms. Scott said. When Ms. Parsons has said, everyone deserves a green space, they deserve to live somewhere beautiful, and then I added also deserve to live somewhere that they love and feel good about. And Ms. Scott has said that in a previous place, or when you lived in D.C., I'm not sure where you said, but that you worked with the housing projects. I really don't even like that name, but you worked where there was affordable housing, and you helped them, I think, create a garden or something to that extent. I'm not sure what you said.
I don't remember saying anything.
That-
I said our community.
Maybe that's what it
Work
was.
in our community. It
Okay.
was a low income.
Maybe that's the
community.
part that you said.
70% or more of our kids was getting free lunches.
Yes.
I do know that for a
Okay.
fact.
I'm sorry, I did have some of the wording
Uh,
correct, but you did.
Yes, the community is cleaner.
Yeah.
We're near the waterfront, so we have to protect the Chesapeake Bay.
Yes.
Debris and trash and stuff.
And I enjoyed hearing that. I was hoping that would be something you would bring also to some of the housing developments that we do have, projects, may you say, because I feel like there's no landscaping there. You can't feel happy living there. You're going to live the way you feel, and that is the stigma that is placed there. And I would love to see them understand how to grow their own food, how to plant plants and create a landscape that they feel good about, because that enhances people's mood. It changes the way you feel about where you live and how you treat it. So I would love to see that implemented, but I don't have to say anything. I think you already know where you need to go, what you need to do, and I think I can speak for everybody when to say we're here to help. What can we do? So just thank you again, and that was it for me.
Thank you. I just wanted to note before we conclude that Resolution 91 of 2023, it isn't linked on the agenda, but it can be found on E-Codes under Public Documents in the Resolutions tab. So it is live there. If there's no further discussion, I move to add Resolution 87 of 2023, Resolution 88 of 2023, Resolution 89 of 2023, and Resolution 91 of 2023 to our next legislative session for votes. Thank you all for your time, and thanks for being here this evening to answer our questions. Have a good night. So that concludes the work of the Administration Committee. We will now move to the work of the Public Safety Committee. There is one resolution for discussion. That's Resolution 86 of 2023. Mr. Truesdale, could you please read it into the record?
Resolution 86, 2023, a resolution authorizing the City of Harrisburg to negotiate and enter into a domestic animal protective services agreement with the Humane Society of Harrisburg area to provide services to the City of Harrisburg's animal control program.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, good evening. I think you alluded to this during both the last quarterly report and the budget presentation. But it's our understanding that the city's current contract for animal shelter services with the Humane Society expires on December 31st of this year.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This is an annual contract, so we come in front of you every year to show you what the changes are. This year, there are, in reference to the contract itself, there are 3 different changes. We met with the Humane Society several times this year to work out issues from past billing disputes. We got an invoice in July. There'd been we met with them to figure out how we can go from not getting any bills. The Humane Society contract we got this year, it wasn't signed until July of this year. So we need to meet with them. We weren't getting consistent billing. They've resolved their issues. We actually, before we met with them, and really in the beginning of end of 2022, beginning of 2023, we changed how we tracked what animals we brought out to the Humane Society, so we could verify their billing practices better. So that, in conjunction with the meetings, led to 3 significant changes in the contract you have before you. The first change, which was a negative one, was a 30% across-the-board price increase. That was significant and a little unexpected, but it is consistent with what they've done with other municipalities also. That is to generate more revenue for the Humane Society. I assume I don't want to speak for them. 2 other changes in the contract. We were limited to 100 pit bulls annually brought by the city of Harrisburg, whether it was our animal control officers, whether it was our police officers who brought an animal out there, or I'm sorry, a pit bull out there, or whether a citizen was authorized to drop off a pit bull with the Humane Society with the acknowledgement from the police department that it was not owned by anybody, it was a stray or found in the city, abandoned. It increased from 100 to 150, because each of the last couple of years, we've been getting very close to that 100 pit bull. We actually passed it last year. So we just recognized it better to ask for an additional pit bull drop-offs, just in case we need to have them, because they limited that, and it's not just Harrisburg, it's every municipality, but we bring a lot of animals to the Humane Society. Then the last change, significant change in the contract, is different, is monthly invoicing. In previous years, in January, we had to cut like a purchase order for the Humane Society and keep a minimum of a $10,000 balance there, which they would send us a bill and they would draw that amount off immediately. And that was a result of the city's past issues with paying bills, and we understood why they did that. I think we all acknowledge the city's a much better spot. The bills can be paid in a more consistent manner. And so now they've agreed that we can do monthly invoicing. So all they do now, and we've actually started it already, they send us an invoice, we verify the animals we dropped off. If there's any dispute, they send us the paperwork they have for that drop-off, and then we figure it out, and then we pay the bills. So those are the changes for the contract. The packet of papers I gave you, Jen Cameron she pays all the bills for the Bureau of Police. And Rachel Black, who is doing the tracking for the animals, got together and put together this information, which I thought was very helpful, and it kind of gives you a little bit of a background about why it is what it is. So that first page, you can see those are just the monthly invoices and the amount of animals that were dropped off and how much it costs individually. The second page, those are all current except for the November billing, which for $3,503, I think there's 3 drop-offs that we're researching. That should be done probably by tomorrow, and then that bill will be paid. So that brings us for the year to date of $48,270. When we added in the 3503 for November and a projection of a guesstimate of 5,000 for December, that brings us to a total of $56,773 for the year around. When we made our budget request, we didn't have the Humane Society information, so we kind of made a guesstimate about what it would be. We increased it by another $5,000. But when we took 56,773 plus 30%, it's around $73,804. So I think for a 75,000 budgeted line for 2024, we're in the ballpark about where we need to be. The only other thing on this page is just shows you on the very bottom there are 4 highlighted entries. And those are entries from 2022 and 2021. Then we went back and forth and we were looking at our records and their records. That is what in this year we agreed to pay to make us have a clean slate with the Humane Society. In other words, they're pleased with the amount that they've received and they think it's fair, and we also. So at this moment for the year, that's where the total of $62,207.19 comes from. And we budgeted $70,000 for the 2023 line item for our budget. The last page, it just gives you a breakdown. It should be consistent with the first 2 pages about what cats, dogs, pit bulls we call critters of. It could be snakes, guinea pigs, rabbits. And it just shows you the total for just perspective. So with that, that is my, barring your questions, that's what I have to let you know about it.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions. I'll open the floor to my colleagues. I'll begin with Councilwoman Rawls. Any questions?
Good evening to you both again. Welcome back.
Yes, ma'am.
But no, I don't have any questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Vice President Green, any questions?
Thank you. I don't have any questions on this.
Thank you. Councilman Majors, any questions?
Thank you. So they began the rates for each animal
Yes, sir.
are listed in the document. They started charging us those rates in 23, or those are the new rates for 24?
The ones in the contract, sir?
Yeah.
Those are for starting January 1st.
Okay, all right.
I can
guess
give
this-
you the rates for 2023 if
Yeah,
you need them.
I got those. So it looks like, I think, just looking at the numbers, the rate for the others didn't really increase, but the rate for dogs, cats, and,
Correct.
okay.
Cats, dogs, and pit bulls
Pit bulls
went up
all
30%.
went up 30, but everything else that
Yes,
the
sir.
other category stays the same.
Rates. Yeah,
Okay.
they didn't change that.
Okay,
It's
all right.
pretty
I was
low
just-
density numbers.
Yeah, I know we have a low density number. I was just looking at and doing some quick math, so just making
Yes,
sure.
sir.
Okay, nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions?
No questions.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, I move to add Resolution 86 of 2023 to our next legislative session for a vote. Thank you, gentlemen. This concludes the work of the Public Safety Committee. We will now move to the work of the Budget and Finance Committee. I will defer to our Budget and Finance Committee Chair, Vice President Green.
Thank you, President Bowers. All right, as we get into our fourth and hopefully final budget hearing for the proposed 2024 budget for the city of Harrisburg, we are going to start with our first bureau, which is the Bureau of Communications. If you could introduce yourself, go over any questions that were asked beforehand. If you have any presentations or anything you'd like to inform us about, feel free to, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Sure. Good evening, Council. My name is Matt Maisel, the Communications Director for the City of Harrisburg. Just in terms of the questions that you asked of us ahead of time, just to put on the record, the main goals that my department, I think, wants to accomplish for 2024 is just the continued digitization of city media. So we're talking about creating an actual app, which we do not have, making sure that WHBG Channel 20 is available for anyone to view on their device, which we currently do not have. These are things which I wouldn't classify as easy fixes, but they are absolutely doable. Another thing that I would like to work on is reconstructing harrisburgpa.gov, the city's website, to make it more visually and user-friendly. Obviously, we've spoken before about discussions with Comcast in terms of having improvements to Channel 20 as both from a studio's perspective and also the just making sure that we kind of move that forward. Assistant City Solicitor Don Steyer, as he helped write back to council in the responses a few weeks ago, basically said we're looking at a couple months from now for those discussions to really kind of get going. So hopefully that is something within 2024 that can be finalized and addressed. In terms of 2023 goals, one of the main ones that we're sitting in it right now, and that is the improvements that were made visually for council chambers, the audio visual. Things look nicer, they look sleeker. There's the digital monitors. It looks better online. I think that some major improvements were made. I know Dave Baker talked about this last night, but the holiday parade, one of our main goals going in was to make that more visually appealing for residents. We were able to put together a live broadcast, which I think was a huge improvement over the previous year. And I mentioned here how I want our WHBG team of Asher Johnson and Emily Speck, I wanted them to feel more recognized in this year. And how is that done? It's done through awards and being recognized by their peers. Are awards super important? No, but the recognition is important. And anyone who tells you that they don't care about recognition, frankly, is lying to you. It feels good, and people deserve to be told that they're doing a good job. The fact that the two of them were honored by one of the national organizations when it comes to government telecommunications work for one of our shows as a national award of honor, I think is a tremendous achievement and something that they and we should be very proud of. Other than that, I'm happy to address any questions that council may have.
Thank you very much. I don't have any questions at the very moment, so I'm going to start to my far right, no, my far left with Councilwoman Daniels. Any questions or comments for the Communications Bureau?
Do you have a sense of what our language access costs are?
Language access costs?
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I thought we were still using Language Line.
I'm sorry?
We're not using Language Line anymore as...
I'm not familiar with that. I can look into that. I know when it comes to translation services, Deputy Communications Director Melissa Mahonis Ortiz handles all translation services for the Bureau. She meets daily with anyone who comes into the city to City Hall to deal with translation services. Is that what you're referring to?
That's kind of, but as I'm thinking about it, I'm not sure if that fell directly under your purview.
Okay.
So I'll follow up.
Is that a web service?
No, it's supposed to be the contract we have through CoStars to provide. So whenever, it's one of the ways in which cities and government complies with Title VI.
Oh, okay.
So I'll
okay.
follow up.
Yeah, please follow up because I'm not familiar with that as a contract that my bureau kind of handles, but that's not to say that it doesn't exist and I just need to do a better job of looking around for it. So please follow up with that if you can.
That's it for me.
Thank you. President Bowers, any questions for the Communications Bureau?
Thank you. I do. So in the questions that I submitted in reference to, can you please provide an overview of the city's communications needs that are addressed in the budget? You noted that the main area that you should be able to address is a necessary redesign of harrisburgpa.gov. And you noted that the city's website needs to be professionally overhauled to make it more visually and user-friendly. The central issue is the city does not have a designated webmaster, so many web-related items come to you. And you've tried to make the website more user-friendly, but you're not qualified or equipped to give it the job it needs. So that's one thing. Who is the webmaster?
So right now, the HarrisburgPA.gov is overseen by a company called Gavin. And IT can more adequately address that because the website itself kind of falls under IT, but in terms of posting to the website and things of that nature, when departments want something to be posted to the website, they come to me, and that's fine because I can put up an article, I can move things around, but the website itself, in my opinion and the opinion of some others who I've asked, is a little clunky. It's not easy to navigate around. It's, instead of being user-friendly, it's a lot more government bureaucratic. And we'd like to try to make it easier for people to move around. If you need to pay a bill, here's an easy way to pay a bill. If you want to see what's going on in the Parks and Recreation Department, events that are taking place, you shouldn't have to click through 3 sites just to get to there. So we want to make it so that it highlights Harrisburg, not government, if that makes any sense.
No, I hear you. I just think it's interesting because I guess prior to or at the beginning of this redesign in 2019, the city won an award for the website. So I think it's just interesting, I guess, the manner in which all users and consumers are both receiving the information and their consumption of it.
Yeah, I think what I was told by one of our IT people is that if you're not updating the look of your website every 18 to 24 months, you're behind the times. And when you look at our website right now, yeah, it may be okay if you're looking at a desktop, but from a mobile device,
oh, I know,
it's rough.
It's things
rough.
are misconfigured. So I do understand that difficulty, and we've heard from residents that they've had to go through almost a rabbit hole to locate one document or to find something that they were interested in learning more about. So the accessibility piece is still in question. Now, you mentioned app development. Will this budget or anything related in this budget accommodate an app?
So we think that we can do apps with the money in this budget. One of the things that I tried to do, and I have to do more research, mind you, in terms of are there free government apps? Is this something that we're going to have to contract out? These are questions that I have not been able, I want to do after the budget is done. Don't count your chickens before they hatch, et cetera, et cetera. But that being said, one of the things that I was able to do just in the last month or two is view the money that we had remaining in this year's budget, take care of expenses that I knew that would come across in the 2024 budget, get them out of the way, and that frees up some funds to be able to do some other avenues as well. So whether it's money that goes towards the website, money that could possibly go towards a new app, the general goal, the theme, if you will, is everyone is on their handheld more than ever before. Harrisburg should be meeting the residents at their needs instead of the other way around.
Oh no, I wholeheartedly agree with you, and I know several council members have conducted our own personal research around an app. I have not found one that is free.
Yeah.
But if you do find one, let me know. I'm just curious. But the ones that I've found, and the various companies that offer them, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's really sort of a la carte. It can include really whatever we want to include in it for a certain amount of time. And it seems like the upfront costs are pretty hefty. However, once you continue and I guess obtain user data and other information that could be helpful in managing the fees a little bit better. The final thing that I wanted to note, you talked about this space. It looks nicer, it looks sleeker. However, we are still having serious issues with audio. And that's from Channel 20, as you are well aware, and YouTube even. I had several people, generally I receive text messages from residents or Facebook messages during the meeting, and I think I've told you this before, when they can't hear or Channel 20 just goes out altogether. But this one was really interesting. So I think a few people were viewing the meeting via YouTube, and there was absolutely no sound. So they restart their devices. They're concerned that something is wrong with the device, and it was something on our end. So I guess just moving forward, or with the upgrades that were made, and I get it, technology works when it works, and it wants to be fickle at times too. But how can we ensure the information that we share is just far too important for people not to be able to access it and hear it as they need to?
I agree with everything that you're saying, and the issues that arise, I try to get a debrief whenever I can. The general theme of the issues seem to go back to a connection that exists, or lack thereof, between the Channel 20 studios located Court and Walnut and this building. That is something that we are hoping to address with this Comcast agreement. When we have experienced issues, as in a few weeks ago, for example, when the entire fiber line went out, what we were forced to do was basically use the YouTube feed, hardline it directly into the router, essentially, and use the audio and video coming from the YouTube channel instead of the other way around. And there were no audio issues when we had to do that. All that is to say that further kind of hammers home our belief that this is related to Comcast issues, and something that we want to address yesterday, and we're going to be able to address it when they get around to addressing it. So that's kind of it. I know last night there were audio static issues. It's related to a wire that was knocked out right where my feet are right now. Unfortunately, those things happen, and thankfully, because of the new audio upgrades, we're able to pass around a wireless microphone, and the audio was able to kind of go off seamlessly after that. So there are the upgrades that we did make in this room, I think, allow for some of the audio issues to be mitigated, if you will. But I agree with you that whenever it does happen, especially with the investment that we made, it's unacceptable. We just believe that it's related to Comcast, and hopefully that when that is solved, it'll be solved completely.
If I can just chime in real quick.
Yes, I
too.
was going to ask if you wouldn't mind sharing.
I can confirm that Matt and I had some conversations about the concerns with the connection integrity in the building. And one of our goals in reaching out to Comcast and just starting the whole process is to make sure that there's like a plant health check and making sure that the lines are repaired before the end of this whole process, making sure that the connection's stable between the buildings and making sure that the broadcasts are smooth. So.
Thank you for that. I don't have any other questions.
Thank you. I will go back to Councilman Majors. Any questions or comments for the Bureau of Communications?
Excuse me. No questions. I think the question around the Comcast agreement was something I had interest in, but I think you've already looked to address that. And so nothing else from me. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Rawls, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Vice President Green, and thank you, Mr. Maisel, for being here tonight and for all the work you all do with communications. I know the last time you were here, there was a documentary that I think you created about the police department, not the department, but the recruits or the trainees and what
Yes.
that process was like. So I know you are working on a lot of big things for the city.
And I still plan to work with you. I have not forgot about that. The
I know
last
you
couple months have
did.
just been a little haywire, but we still plan on getting together on that.
I didn't think you forgot. It has been in this budget. I can't do anything right now. So, because this is very important to get passed, so it's okay. I know we'll work things out to see what we can do for Channel 20 and getting some programming. So that will be fun. I just had one question, and I don't know if it's allowed, but you had spoke about the website. And I was just wondering, is it allowed for us to have a section where it's like, oh, you want to live in Harrisburg, and kind of detailing some things, maybe housing in Harrisburg that is up for sale or apartments for rent? I don't know if that's allowed, but just trying to, if someone came to our website to look there to say, oh, I think I want to live in Harrisburg, just a way of championing it. I don't know if that's allowed, but if it was, is that something that we can do?
That's a good question. Probably, Neil, Don, are there anything that stands out to you in the immediate question of that?
There were things you can do and things you can't do.
Okay.
If the government's in the business of allowing advertisement, well,
Right.
then we are not in the business of saying what content can be in it.
Okay.
So that's where, but that doesn't mean we can't have links and information to services available, to those in the municipality.
Okay.
And to do the easy example, like if we said, Bob's Realty, well, then we also have to do Mary Beth's Realty
Right.
and everyone else's Realty, But if we linked to a whatever website that's a routine one that summarizes them,
Okay.
it's just how you do it.
Right.
Right, that's what it is.
Okay. Thank you for further explaining that. My other thing was I was looking at apps for us for the city, government ones. I didn't feel like there were a whole lot out there. The only one I really found was one called Zazz. I hope I'm saying it right. It was ZAZZ, and it was they said they do government development ones, and I was checking the website to make sure it was secure. It had the HTTPS there, so it looked like a secure one. But there was another one called Constant Contact. I believe a resident told me they used it in Baltimore, and they had an app that the government used there. So,
And we're also looking into the company that basically oversees Cablecast, which is the unit that kind of allows Channel 20 to kind of put out its content, excuse me. We're looking into ways that they have a way that you can make all the Channel 20 content be easily accessible on a mobile device as well. So that's one of a couple different options that we're looking at it as well. But it is important to get a full-fledged city app where you can do the basic things, even of just pay a bill or pay a ticket or something like that, where you can get that information on your phone or tablet device, what have you.
I agree. That's where we're moving towards. So you're right. So thank you for starting that process. I think you went to a training, or someone in your department went to a training, and that was one of the things that was talked about was how to create a government app.
Yep.
Thank you for doing things like that and kind of getting us moving into this new world of technology. So
thank you.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments for the Bureau of Communications? Seeing none, thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate all that you do.
Thank you.
We will continue on with our agenda to the Bureau of Planning. Good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. If you could introduce yourself and your title, kind of go over what you do or your department does. If you have any presentations, please provide them. If you could go over the questions that were asked to your department beforehand, and then we will open it up to any questions.
Sure. Good evening, Council. My name is Jeffrey Knight. I am the Planning Director and Floodplain Administrator with the City of Harrisburg. As to what my department does, kind of a little bit of everything, being in the planning sector of government, we're touching on land development, housing, economic development, environmental work, parks and rec. So some of those more than others, obviously. But we work pretty closely with most of the departments here in the city and work with the public to review and process zoning relief applications, land development plans, street vacations, zoning codes, zoning map amendments, and then also doing reviews of mercantile permits and building permits, and finally doing general public intake of public questions and comments. We tend to be a landing point for, I think, a lot of the public's general questions, and we're happy to answer the ones that are relevant to the Planning Bureau and also direct them to any other department that may be relevant. With respect to kind of what you see in our budget, it's pretty similar to what we've been presenting, what I've been presenting on for about 11 years now. Most of our costs are related to our zoning hearing board meetings, so that includes our advertisements for our legal ads, for our monthly meetings, a stenographer to attend the monthly meetings, and then the solicitor that acts on behalf of the zoning hearing board. So because the board is a independent quasi-judicial body, our law bureau is not their counsel as they are with like our HARB and Planning Commission. So it's largely related to the costs of those meetings, and then otherwise related to staff. With respect to staff, I believe the three questions I got were related, first was related to the vacancy of the historic preservation specialist, archivist position. We actually did just interview somebody on Monday. And I think we have a few more coming up. So, hopefully one of them is hopefully you find a good qualified candidate that's willing to accept the position. We did have a really good candidate earlier this year that got all the way to the offer, and then their company, I guess, kind of upped theirs. So we weren't able to get him. They would have been a very good position candidate, I believe, for the position. So we are still, that position is still vacant with, again, hoping to fill it as soon as possible, and not only to have a full complement in the Bureau, but I've been doing that work for about the past 2 years since our former historic preservation specialist left and went to PHMC. With respect to the diversity complement, we have 3 staff in the department. Myself, Kat Carini is our planner 1. She's been with us since last October. And then our newly hired deputy planning director, Mac Breach, who just started in this October. So 3 of us in the department. Finally, I believe the last question was with respect to whether we have other than English speakers in the department, and Kat Carini is conversant. She is a first point of contact for Spanish-speaking individuals that come into the department or that submit building or mercantile permits. However, we also do work very closely with Melissa in the communications department. She's, I think, better able to translate some of the nuances in the types of questions we ask of applicants. So we go through her for the most part when it comes to kind of trying to nail down specifics of projects.
Thank you very much. And if you could just go over your department's goals. So looking at your 2023 goals, can you measure how well you've done on them, if you've accomplished those goals, and then looking forward at your 2024 goals?
Sure. So for the 2023 goals, which I believe this list was based on a PowerPoint presentation from last year's budget, filling all vacant positions. Obviously, we're, I guess, 50% of the way there on that. So we still have the one remaining vacancy, the Historic Preservation Specialist. Update the applications that we have in the department. This is something that we'll have done by the end of this month. Not just updating it to kind of streamline and provide more information on the applications themselves with regards to required documentation and process, but eventually to convert the applications themselves into Spanish, and then to have all of these online. We have some of the applications online right now, not all of the ones, and not in both English and Spanish. So that's something, I think the conversion to Spanish will probably be a little bit into next year, maybe February, but we're hoping to have all of the applications themselves updated and posted to the website by the end of the year. Translating the documentation to Spanish, again, that's something that will be subsequent to updating the applications in English. Develop zoning code amendment packages, so that's something that our new Deputy Planning Director has been working on since his start. We've been looking at some, I guess you'd call them curative amendments. For example, we don't have some terminology defined in the definitions of the zoning code that is elsewhere in the code. So that's something, we want to make sure we're bringing, really filling the document out so that the terminology is consistent and the public, knows how these terms are defined within the document themselves. We're also looking at doing some packages of zoning code updates by chapter. Maybe doing something like the uses chapter and specific criteria and bringing that to City Council in a package, and then maybe a little bit later working on things like the signs, for example, and off-street parking regulations. So we don't want to certainly overwhelm either ourselves or the Planning Commission or City Council with a full kind of comprehensive edits of the document itself, but we do realize that there are aspects that, again, need to be brought up to kind of fill out the document, but also to kind of modernize some of the aspects of the information in the zoning code. Develop the comp plans GSI maps, or GIS maps, I should say. So that's something that we haven't really had the capacity to do within the department in the past year, but our new Deputy Planning Director, one of the things we did like about his background is he had a significant amount of GIS experience under the current ArcMap and ArcGIS desktop software, and so he's already begun working on the base maps for each of the chapters and then putting them into a story mat format, and that's kind of like that's a way to present GIS information in a manner that's not just strictly maps. It's kind of fills it out with some text and gives some context behind what's being presented and illustrated in the maps. So he's already in the process of doing that. Improving our CRS classification. This is a project that Kat has been working on for a good amount of time. I've had her looking into we are currently a level 8 community within the CRS rating program, and the top is level 1. And I've had Kat researching all of the communities that are level 5 or higher to identify where they were scoring points, and then how they were scoring those points in terms of what documentation they have or how they present information or how they make it available, and then to identify the low-hanging fruit for us as the city to be able to find what types of projects or what types of programs we're able to go after to score as many points as quickly as possible to get us into a higher rating classification. So that's something I don't know that I'll have done by next February, which is the end of February is when we have our annual recertification with FEMA, where we're submitting documentation regarding how we're moving towards scoring points within the system. But it's definitely something that I'll be focused on into the spring and summer, especially now that we'll have the capacity with having the new deputy planning director on staff. And then finally, the progress on long-term document digitization. That's kind of an ongoing pet project of mine to try and digitize all the documentation we have within the department, so that we have a hard copy and a digital copy of everything. That's to not only make information more readily available to the public when they request it, and we certainly get a lot of right-to-know requests. We get a lot of like zoning verification letter requests, just requests on people interested in learning about the city or about their particular property. And obviously that's all much easier to do via like email and sending out digital copies rather than having them come in and look at whatever hard copies we have. But it's certainly taken on additional, I think, importance and urgency with the city's transition to the Munis program that we'll be having, which is, the property documenting and organizing software that we'll have, which will do a whole bunch of things in terms of document storage, but also workflows for departments here in the city. And so, that's something that will probably take a while, and I'll probably be working on for a little while, but we have made good progress within the department towards digitizing these records, and so I think we'll be ready to go when it's the Planning Bureau's turn to really dig into the Munis system. I think they've started with finance first, and now they've gone on to codes, and so we expect that, and I've been working closely with codes on the permitting workflow, but we'll be having our turn eventually to see how we can migrate the information we have into that system. And then so coming up for our 2024 departmental goals, we'll be finalizing the comprehensive plan chapter maps and populating with data relevant to the document, not just in terms of things like existing like GIS layers that we have for things like parks or floodplains and census data, but maybe looking into working with other departments such as the Codes Bureau or the Tax and Enforcement Office to find where building permits are being submitted, where businesses are being started, and showing and finding a way to illustrate that on the maps themselves. The zoning code amendment packages that I had previously noted, we'll be hopefully bringing those through City Council at some point, maybe starting this spring. Let's see. So we are coordinating with other departments and outside agencies such as CASH, Capital Area Coalition on Homelessness, to address some of the issues they're dealing with. CAT in particular has been our department's liaison to HRA and CASH, and also to CRW in terms of our engagement with them. So we'll be, I think, building that out. She's working on developing urban agriculture guidelines for the city here, and kind of finding a way to tie those into the zoning code. She's working with Danielle Lewis, the sustainability coordinator, and other stakeholders within kind of the urban agriculture, I guess, movement, you'd say, within the city. Elevating our CRS rating to increase the discounts on insurance for owners of property in the floodplain. So again, we're currently at level 8, which gives owners of property in the floodplain a 5% discount on their flood insurance. And as you go up, it goes up in increments of 5. So going up to a level 6 will give people 15% discount. And as the federal government moves toward full actuarial rates for flood insurance, an issue that's really kind of striking Florida right now, that those discounts will represent increasing amounts of money for our property owners. So I think could be a real large economic benefit for residents and businesses. Again, continuing with the long-term digitization project, I don't expect it to be done in 2024, but I expect to make good progress towards the end result. And again, that will hopefully help us not only provide more information to other departments and to the public, but to integrate the work the Planning Bureau does into Munis. And then finally, as just an overall general goal, is to improve the responsiveness of the department. Again, we've been short-staffed for the last couple years, pretty much only had two staff on hand at any one time. And so with a third staff member that will certainly help us stay more on schedule with permit reviews, making sure we're engaging with applicants for the Planning Commission, HARB, and Zoning Hearing Board at an earlier stage in their process to make sure their documentation is better, not only for their own benefit, but for the benefit of the boards that review these things and the public. So, we think that with an additional person, that's going to be a pretty significant increase in our responsiveness. And if we're able to get that last position filled, hopefully we'll be, really where our goal is.
Thank you very much, Director Knight. I don't have many questions. I will note that it looks like the organizational chart that's in the budget book still has the urban planner 1 position listed as vacant.
Okay.
So if we could just get that updated.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the only question I kind of have for you is, as developers are going through the process, coming for the Planning Commission and Zoning Hearing Board, how have we integrated into the process any way to let them know about our affordable housing package and encourage them to participate in it?
So that's something, that we bring up at the first point of contact, usually when we have somebody reaching out to us, especially if it's going to be strictly, multifamily dwelling or some sort of mixed-use project. We always note the availability of the program itself, and also the potential benefits that it may have to them in terms of the zoning bonuses that were adopted by City Council a couple years ago, and density, off-street parking relief, and things of that nature. But more as a general point, we try to bring up the issue of housing affordability, even if they don't intend on going through the program, because some of them may say, well, I'm in a zoning district that is not affected by the affordable housing legislation. And we note to all of them, like, this is going to be something that comes up in the Planning Commission and City Council, and it's something that's really a critical issue of facing the city at the moment, facing the city's residents. So it's definitely something that you need to be thinking about from the outset of your project design, and not as something that's tried to be appended on at the end of the process, or as something that's maybe even just fully brushed aside. So it's definitely something we put them in touch with the housing department and with economic development to discuss what those rates are based on the HUD schedules, and that's something we'll definitely continue doing, and that's something that's going to end up actually within the document revisions themselves. So right now, within that kind of our existing documentation, we don't really have something for like a box to check with. I'm going to participate in this project, and here's the commitment of how many units I'll have. Here is how many will be affordable and at what level. So that's something we're going to be adding to the document, so that again, it's something that these applicants and developers are thinking about at the beginning of the project as they're filling these out, rather than something that we have to introduce to them, or we have to kind of get them to think about.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm also glad to hear that you're incorporating it now and looking to incorporate it in the actual application process itself. So thank you. I will open it up to my colleagues. I'll start to my far left with Councilman Majors.
Thank you. And thank you, Director Knight, for the work you do. I'm glad to hear you're planning to incorporate a lot more GIS components into what you're doing. I think that's going to be critically important for the work you do, and you guys have been, short-staffed almost my entire time serving on City Council. So I'm hopeful that you'll be able to fill the position. In terms of the one vacancy, and is the salary competitive for the position you're looking to fill?
So it's always kind of tough to tell. I think that's dependent upon different individuals. I don't think we've got a whole lot of applicants for either the deputy planning director or the historic preservation specialist. But I wouldn't say that that's necessarily for the same reasons, and it may be that they're competitive, but it's harder to find people with that skill set. in terms of the HARB or the Historic Preservation Specialist position, as opposed to the Deputy Planning Director position. That's more of like a general dealing with zoning, land development, things of that nature. So I do know that the candidate we did have that we were hoping to bring in, he said he was really interested in the position, thought it would look like good work, but he was just like, you know, it's a step down for me in terms of what the salary is. And so would it help to have more? Probably. But how much more or where we're at, I really haven't done a whole lot of research into maybe what other departments, what other cities
Other
are
city planning,
yeah, offering at that for that same position.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think, that'll be helpful. I know we've, as a body, talked about doing, more studies in terms of ensuring our salaries and wages are competitive for communities of our size. Then I guess also in terms of the budget, looking at just the advertising line and notice the reduction there, or I mean, have you been staying within that as to why you're looking for a reduction, or do you anticipate having less work, which I'm sure probably not for 2024?
So I track I've pretty much tracked our budget for the last 8 years or so against like the monthly costs of the zoning hearing board meetings and where we end up at the end of the month or at the end of the year for each of those things to compare against what our budget will be. And I think our budget in recent years has fallen probably a little short of I think there was the 15,000 that our line item has been. And we've always had a couple thousand left over. And so, I don't think we've gotten much above like 12,500, 13,000. So I felt like, maybe right-sizing the budget would work. We're only having 11 meetings a year, and, the average legal ad cost is $800 to $1,000 or something. So I think we should be good with slightly less money.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. President Bowers?
Thank you. Thank you for your responses to the questions that I submitted in advance. I do have a few follow-up for you. The first one is, you mentioned the GIS maps. Can you please provide an overview of the city's comprehensive goals that are addressed in the budget?
You mean the cities or the departments?
The comprehensive plan that was adopted,
okay.
What goals are addressed within this budget other than the GIS mapping, if that's the only one?
I mean, I wouldn't even say that the GIS mapping so much is addressed in the budget. That's more something about the skills that the staff we have are able to do. I think the GIS, whatever our GIS software and licensing is, I think, handled through IT for the most part. And I believe like police have somebody with a license, and IT obviously does too. Most of our budget is, focused on, again, the zoning hearing board meetings and our staff. And in terms of how that's addressing the comprehensive plan, like having more staff allows us to do more, get down and do more granular reviews of things like not only the projects that we review, but maybe even getting into small area studies. I know our former deputy planning director, one of the projects he was working on before he left was a parking analysis for the Summit Terrace neighborhood because it is so like uniquely situated up there. And because we had some projects, and one of the issues that kept coming up was parking. So we're trying to by having more staff, we're able to maybe start digging into some of these other little kind of go down these other roads. The homelessness issue that I said that Kat was working on, or the urban agriculture guidelines she's working on. These are all kind of working towards addressing the issues that are in the comprehensive plan, whether it's homelessness, whether it's urban agriculture, whether it's working with CRW to incorporate their environmental goals into the project reviews we do. So really, a lot of the budget is not really going to, I think, specific ways of addressing this. It's allowing us to have the staffing complement that will let us do some of this stuff in-house and start to bring it into our normal order of operations. If I was to say, we're going after, we'd request maybe $100,000 for a consultant in the consulting line item to go after a Paxton Creek study. That's certainly some way I think that I could see us having a budget ask for my department to effectuate a very clear project that's outlined in the comprehensive plan. But otherwise, a lot of it's what we do is a lot of the comprehensive plan goals and the actions that are in there are about updating and improving the city's operations and improving how we engage with the public and property owners and developers to incorporate these things. I would say that a lot of it is not necessarily city driven. It's kind of making sure that we're encouraging these things in new developments, and that we're making sure our regulations and our applications are prioritizing these, highlighting these, and encouraging these amongst the public.
Okay, thank you. My next line of questioning relates to your workload and any changes in your job responsibilities. I will be asking to see a job description, if it's been updated, relating any duties that may have changed that you're responsible for, and the job description for the deputy director. Now, I did find one for the deputy director that was posted. I think the posting date is 2018. I'm not sure if anything has changed, but this states that the deputy director, this official acts as a technical advisor and the executive secretary to the planning commission and the zoning hearing board. Is that still accurate?
That's still accurate, yes.
Okay, so that would eliminate those responsibilities from under your purview.
Mm-hmm.
So then you would serve as the planning director.
Mm-hmm.
Would you still serve as the FEMA floodplain manager?
Yes, I would. And,
Okay.
And again, a lot of these things, while I've taken on the responsibilities of other departments, you by nature have a necessity kind of take a little bit more of a broader view of these things because you don't have the capacity to really get into them. But once we have staff in here to take over those duties, it allows me to get further into these other things like the CRS upgrade of the city, whereas before, it's largely kind of doing the perfunctory things of reviews of building permits, addressing inquiries from the public, and doing our CRS documentation on an annual basis.
Would you continue to assist with Harrisburg Historic Preservation?
So I will continue until we're able to fill the vacancy to serve the role and the responsibilities of the Historic Preservation Specialist position. So that does mean attending the meetings, reviewing building permits for exterior work in historic districts, potentially going and doing presentations with HHA or the Historic Society of Dauphin County or PHMC.
Okay. I don't think I don't have any other questions. But again, I will be requesting those job descriptions so that we're able to see what, if anything, has changed in either.
Yeah, and I would hope my job description necessarily hasn't been updated because we're not advertising the position.
No, but I know that there was, particularly during the performance evaluation period, there was a request for everyone to review their job descriptions and if any duties and responsibilities had changed. So that's all. I'm just curious, with the new staff support, how your role may change and some of the hats you may be able to relinquish. So thank you.
And I'll be happy to review the job descriptions for each of the positions within my department and ensure they're all up to date and provide those to City Council.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls, any questions or comments?
Thank you, Vice President Green. I also just wanted the job description as well, just to look over it, to see. So that's already been asked, and I'm sure we'll get those so we can look over them. And thank you for being here tonight. If I didn't say it, if I did, and I said it twice, I'm sorry. We've had some long nights.
Yeah.
But I was just writing down the goals you said and also reading the ones you had on the paper that you sent in. So I do look forward to you accomplishing those goals, as many as you can, or revising them and then letting us know when you come in for the quarterly reports and updating us on what you've done. And of course, just, making sure being fair to every applicant that comes through your office for paperwork, especially when they're not, if English isn't their first language, and just making sure they're getting their due diligence and being able to get things done, and also at the planning meeting. So just staying fair and respectful to everyone who's coming through to the planning office.
Absolutely, and I think I'm most excited about the potential for the comprehensive plan story maps. Again, I think that will be a really great addition to the Planning Bureau's webpage. I know Matt talked about updating the city's website, and I'm not sure what all that will entail. We'll obviously work with them, but I'm imagining it would be something similar to the floodplain information page we have in the historic district or historic preservation blog we have that are kind of linked to within our main landing page. It'll probably be something similar, and I think once that's up and running, it'll be a really great resource again for both the public and for the other departments here in the city.
Thank you. Also, you mentioned historical districts that are in the city, and made me think of a question. And I don't know if this is a you answer or nil answer for posting things, but is there like a public posting on our website or for people to know where our historic districts are?
Yes, so we have the Historic Preservation blog that was created by our former Historic Preservation specialist. He did a really great job. Has the maps, has links to like the Secretary of the Interior standards, the National Park Service, and I believe he had even posted some explanatory videos of things like fixing siding and windows and stuff like that. That's something I'll definitely have a new historic preservation specialist come in and take a look at and see if anything needs updated, supplement that, but also making sure that that information is a bit more explicit. It is on our zoning map that's on the main landing page. We have the layers of the zoning districts, the historic districts, both municipal and national, floodplain, stuff like that. So the information is in our main zoning map, but we can certainly work to kind of flesh it out a little bit more within that preservation page.
Thank you very much. That's it for me, Vice President Green.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments for the Bureau of Planning? Seeing none, thank you for being here tonight, Director Knight.
Thank you very much.
We will move on to our next department, which will be the Office of City Treasurer, if we have anyone. Seeing none. The Office of City Controller did inform me they would not be able to make it tonight. And next we have the Bureau of Licensing, Taxation, and Central Support. Good evening. Hello. If you could introduce yourself and your position, go over any questions that were asked from your department beforehand. If you have a presentation, such as this lovely one that you customized for us, you can present it to us, and then we'll open it up for any questions.
All right. Good evening, President Bowers, Chair Green, honorable council members. I am Mike Hughes, the tax administrator for the city of Harrisburg. And with me is Janelle Ward, the Deputy City Tax Enforcement Administrator. I'll first discuss the duties of our Bureau. The Bureau of Licensing, Taxation, Central Support actively collects business privilege, mercantile, parking, and amusement taxes. We also collect license fees for businesses, landlords, vendors, fuel trucks, and parking lots and garages. In addition, as the first stop for new business applicants, we collect zoning, fire prevention, and health license fees for those offices. We also collect on fire and police false alarm charges and administer the dog licensing program. Our paralegals lead our civil collection efforts, and we regularly file civil complaints and attend court hearings. They also work closely with the codes department on landlord licensing related issues and conduct research on the weekly property transfers to ensure that the data from the county was correctly received and inputted into the city system. We also staff the duplicating mailroom center, where all incoming and outgoing mail is sorted, processed, and posted accordingly. The mailroom employee also handles citywide print requests, large monthly mailings, and monitors the inventory of office supplies. So that's a brief overview of our duties. In regards to the questions that were submitted, we have a total of 7 employees in our office, 4 white females, 2 black and brown females, and 1 white male. And we have 1 employee who writes and speaks basic Spanish. Most of our goals for 2023 also will continue to overlap with year 2024, as they're mostly revenue-based. First goal is to continue to increase revenue over the prior year through active collections. This measurement will be determined, after the 24 calendar year is completed, and the 2023 data will be displayed here shortly. So, we will also continue to implement the Tyler Munis system in hopes of providing more efficient service and additional payment options for taxpayers, and continue to direct customers to use the currently available online value pay option. Most likely, we won't be able to fully measure this until year 2025, when the system is maybe fully implemented with Tyler Munis. Additionally, we want to continue to improve customer service and accommodate taxpayers with office hours matching building hours, while timely answering and returning phone calls and emails, along with sending out written correspondence. And I will say currently, we do regularly receive positive feedback in this manner from taxpayers and citizens, that they are impressed with the various options that we do have available and the timeliness that we get back to them. Another goal is to finalize the ongoing transition of scanning our internal files and cleaning up some old accounts. We're currently, we've been doing this for several years, and we just, I think, completed year 2022, so we're getting closer to having everything scanned in the system. Once that's completed, obviously we'll be able to access those files a lot quicker for audit purposes and other reasons. And lastly, we'd like to see some of our larger civil collection cases move forward to county court. On the positive side, I've already met with the new collections attorney twice, so it looks positive outlook for year 2024. So, our overall revenue collection has continued to rise year over year, and we will now reference our PowerPoint presentation to review our revenue goals and expectations. So our first slide shows the historical overview of revenue from years 2020 through 2023 year to date, which is the end of November. If you look at the very bottom line on this first slide, you can see in year 2020 we were at 6.9 million for these particular items. Then it went to 7.2 for 21 and 7.6 for 2022. Currently we're at 7.5. However, that number should rise by an additional 300,000 once the payments for December are posted. So we will continue that upward trend. So, all right, we'll go to the next slide. The next slide shows our current year, just the mercantile collections. Very similar. 2020 we were at 2.9, 21 3 million, 2022 3.2, and we're currently at 3.2. And same thing, once December revenue post, we will exceed the 2022 number. So, next slide. Okay. Now, prior year revenue, this is a different looking slide here. So it spiked in 2021, and that was as a result of COVID. We had less customers coming in, so we were able to focus more on the prior year collections, and the results show for themselves. And then it leveled back out, and then started to rise again. So we are on target to come in with good numbers. Year 2021 was just an exceptional year due to COVID. So, all right, thanks. And penalty kind of followed in step with that, same thing. Spiked in 2021 during the COVID collections, went back down, and then now we're back up current year and on a good trend there. So interest is similar, spiked during COVID, came back down, and we're a little bit down in 23. We expect to get more here in December. However, some of that is the timing. If people file a little sooner, they may have gotten hit with the penalty, but not the interest portion. So that kind of explains that particular area there. So now as far as amusement tax, same thing. COVID had a big impact on our collections and the normal trends. 2020, once COVID hit, luckily we had some big events early in the year of 2020. Got some good revenue, and then it started going down once things started shutting down. Continued down into 21, and then once COVID was resolving, it started, increasing back to a normal in 2022, and now in 2023, these are the best numbers we've ever seen for amusement tax. As far as parking tax, we peaked in 2019. You don't see it here, but in 2019, we were at about 4.2 million. COVID hit, that started sliding. And 2020 slid even further in 2021. Started to come back in 2022. 2023, I do expect another large payment in December. Should bring us up to like 3.7, 3.8. So we will be exceeding 2022. However, we're still about 400,000 off of our peak in 2019. And obviously, more people not commuting into the city to work. That has definitely affected the parking coming back to where it once was. So, next slide, just in case people don't know, we also collect mercantile and amusement for the school district. And these are the numbers that we have collected for them so far this year, year to date. So, next slide. Just wanted to throw in a couple miscellaneous statistics. Our auditing collection number, 728,000. That was primarily collected by our deputy here with some assistance from our administrative assistant. And these are through direct audits of incoming tax returns. You could also see for the current year, we've issued 467 mercantile licenses, 177 landlord, and 223 vendor licenses. In our civil collections, we did attend 59 hearings this year at the local district justice office, and the two paralegals combined collect 373,000 as a result of that. I will make a note that didn't quite meet my expectations this year. A lot of those factors were out of our control. The normal DJ had retired. And then, the scheduling out at the DJ, they didn't have us on the calendar as much as we were trying to get on it. And then they had a senior DJ, and then he recently passed away and was sick for a while. So there were several months where we were hardly getting any cases scheduled, and they've pushed them all back to 2024. So we do expect that number to probably double in 2024 on the hearings we'll be attending. So. Next slide, just to show people some of the stats for our mailroom center. Our employee over there made over 350,000 copies this past year. Sent out 45,000 envelopes for special mailings, 140,000 trash bills, and the Daily Mail over 237,000 envelopes of Daily Mail over the past year. and then the associated costs. Next slide, just to show our largest budget line item is postage. It's forecast again to go up in 2024. So we're kind of showing those price increases there. Of course, certified is already an outrageous price. That's going up again. Not much we can do there. Internally, we try and, make sure a certified is warranted. We don't just automatically send that because of that particular price. But that is our highest budget line item. So in conclusion, I'd like to thank my staff, Brenda, Candy, Lexi, Carrera, Tyra, and especially Janelle, whom without them, we would not have been able to continue to achieve our revenue goals and provide efficient and timely service, both internally and externally. And I will note the nice documents were prepared by Janelle, so it wasn't me. So, but we will take questions at this time. So.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for that presentation. It provided a lot of very important information for us. I don't have any questions. I think you kind of went over everything. So I appreciate you being thorough. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues. I'll start to my far right with Councilwoman Ross.
Good evening to you both, and thank you for being here tonight. I don't have any questions either. You laid everything out very well with your presentation, so thank you for that detail.
President Bowers.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thank you, Janelle, for the PowerPoint presentation and the hard copy of materials. I think I say this to you every year. I look forward to this presentation. I think that it should be a model for other bureaus and departments. I find it to be very clear, concise, and just impactful. So I just wanted to thank you for all of your work there. I don't have any other questions. Thank you. Just thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors.
Thank you. I'll start off by echoing the sentiments of President Bowers. It is very thorough and concise. One question I do have with respect to postage and the correlation with everything moving towards Munis. How's those conversations been going with Munis about making online payments more of an option, like an online billing, right? So most of the bills that I receive in my personal life, I don't receive paper. Most of the paper coming to my house, unfortunately, is, this company trying to get me to, credit card or, unsolicited, mail. Has there been discussions about being able to convert away from not just pay local, because I know that's a great tool, but I get a paper bill to then, it references me to go to pay local to pay a bill that if I save my number, so I know my property number, I just go in, pay it. So is there a way to look at moving towards more online as the cost of postage continues to increase?
Oh, a great question. And we've had those preliminary discussions, with IT and Munis. And in fact, we did factor a certain amount into the current budget because some things are still being worked out. So there's some unknowns with the Munis system, with the billing. So we actually had to budget a little bit for the next year because of those uncertainties. But the hope is once those are ironed out, then we see those savings, and hopefully they'll continue into year 2025. I know in the past there was some requirements of a paper bill, but hopefully we're going to be able to move away from that. And I know IT had mentioned about the possibility, of also capturing like emails and possibly sending out bills in that method. And we're all on board to move forward that way. So we're kind of pushing for that, but it's really we're in those discussions, but it's kind of the IT Munis conversation, and I'm sure Steve Boyner could probably provide a little more detail as to how that's going to play out. But we're on board, and we'd surely like to move there also as soon as we can. So.
Okay, all right. Thank you, and again, thank you for the presentation. All this information is very helpful.
Thank you. Once again, just thank you all for all that you do. Thank you for the extra things that you do behind the scenes that people don't know of, just to keep the city moving forward and keep us on track. Thank you for tracking everything so that you can provide us with that data information. And also thank you for your customer service, because I know a lot of people that have went to your office and they received the utmost customer service, where you guys try to make sure that they get help even if it's not exactly your department. You're always kind of going the extra mile. So that is very much appreciated, your asset to the city, and we appreciate everything that you do. And thank you for the personalized notes on top as well. It's appreciated. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, next. We will be moving on to general expenses and transfers, followed by other funds. I believe that will be being presented by our finance department. Good evening. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves and your titles, and then you can start with your presentation.
Okay. Oh, okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, President Bowers, Vice President Green, Brian McCutcheon, Accounting Manager.
And good evening, Marita Kelly. I'm the Director of Budget and Finance, and Brian and I will be tag teaming a little bit because there's some pieces that he is expert at and some I'm a little more expert at. So if you don't mind being a little patient with us, we appreciate it. Tim was kind enough to give me all the small funds because when he runs the budget, he's the boss. So that's why I'm handling the smaller funds. Thank you.
Okay, all right. In general expenses, there are, of course, significant expenditure items, and the biggest of which we've recently discussed this in our budget reallocation adjustment meetings. In the personnel grouping, the medical line is the biggest amount requested there. We also include our lost time medical, which really is the workers' compensation claims that occurred during the year. And the fire and the police budget units also have a portion allocated for those claims, but there are particular claims that come in that are not public safety related, so they do fall under general expenses. And the budget amount for lost time medical is being requested at $200,000. And right now, the medical line is, as I said, the most significant. That's being put forth at $11.3 million. And also, the final major line under personnel for general expenses includes the non-uniform pension line, which is the allocated piece of the minimum municipal obligation for the non-uniform pension plan. In total, that amount is it is seven figures. It's $1,035,000, but we do an allocation that portions off. What you're seeing here is $890,000 plus. And the remaining piece of the $1,035,000 ends up in the Neighborhood Services Fund, based on an allocation we do for pension expense of the non-uniform plan, business versus governmental classifications. That's personnel, the major lines. If I move down to the services accounts, which begin with a 4.2. The biggest thing that stands out, and it's reflective too of our medical claim expenditures occurring And it's tied to that. Our stop loss premium, so we're budgeting a higher amount of $925,000 for next year. And we've taken input from our HR department who communicates with our provider, which is affiliated with Highmark, and they are projecting, or they quote off what their rates will be going in for the new year.
If you could just explain what exactly stop loss premium is.
Certainly. Again, as the claims happen during the year, it's similar to insurance where any one particular claim, if it reaches the threshold, almost like a deductible or a self-insured retention amount. Once we hit that on any one claim, then future amounts related to that claim are subject to stop loss recovery. So that's monitored by our provider. And as I previously mentioned, we've actually achieved, it's not the most optimistic thing to cite, but over $900,000 has been received in this current fiscal year for stop loss recovery. It's insurance recovery, and it's reflective of the sizable increase in medical claim expenditures that have already occurred in the current fiscal year. Sure. And the next line down in account 423023 is our liability settlement claims. And this is a projection or a feel for 2024 that we, in communication with Solicitor Grover and the Law Bureau, we try to get a sense of what is the potential for claims to occur. There, again, this is, part of this is in the general expenses, and another part also is in the Neighborhood Services Fund to cover claims that are of this nature but are more specific to that fund. And the goings-on that impact that fund expenditure-wise. The biggest thing that stands out in our services accounts, and this is another insurance item, account 423040, which is our property, crime, and cyber coverage, but the property insurance is the biggest hit that the city has taken this year, of course, with property losses, damage. Of course, the Broad Street Market property comes to mind. And correct, yes, the water damage that happened earlier in the year. So it had an impact, obviously, on the carrier's decision to provide the coverage, but certainly at a higher cost to the city. And that's, again, there's an allocation there. Part of this is absorbed by the Neighborhood Services Fund. But it's $1.4 million for general expenses for next year. Moving down through the remaining accounts, the majority of those significantly are, again, our insurance coverage expenditure accounts, including inland marine, flood premium insurance, our public official deductible claims, excess liability, and so on. So those amounts have somewhat increased, but not nearly to the level as what we're being impacted on the property insurance side. In the 4.3 accounts for supplies, there's typically nothing really there when it comes to general expenses, because if you think about it, our supplies are really specific to the city's various departments. So it's rare to find any budget amount, and that's the case for 2024. And lastly, for general expenses, the other accounts, usually other means capital expenditures, but for general expenses, there's two main lines that are continuing for 2024. The 462000 account at $150,000 represents the continuation of the After 5 parking program involving Park Harrisburg. And the line below that for 462002 is the quarterly support amounts totaling $385,000 plus for a new name now, formerly Capital Area Transit. It's Susquehanna Transportation. Same operation though for the bus transit. So in total, our requested amount for the year is $17.5 million. And it is actually, we've adjusted that down in comparison to the current revised budget. And one thing that was heavy last year that is not as heavy for next year is the incinerator litigation documents matter, as the majority of the expenditures, I believe, have been incurred and paid. We're in the process with this check run that's coming up. We have a few more invoices to pay. There is a budget amount of $250,000 as an estimate of what still may materialize for next year. And if Neil, if you have any comments you want to add to that, please feel free.
I do not.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So that's the summary of the lines for general expenses.
Any questions from our colleagues? Seeing none, if you would continue on.
Okay. The next budget unit would be, and I like this one. This is much shorter and much more. And actually, it's a good one. As far as our debt. Now, the total amount is quite large, and this represents, of course, transfers out of the general fund to the various funds involved. And usually, it's mainly about debt service, and it includes debt service, of course, for next year. And that amount is $1,250,000, which is the funding for the city's minimum contribution going toward supporting the debt service for the Verizon Commonwealth Tower bonds that were issued by the Redevelopment Authority. The city is the guarantor of that debt. And of course, that was restructured 10 years ago through the Strong Plan. And this is the city's amount, the minimum contribution amount for next year. That's the debt service. That's much lower than, of course, it's been in recent years, which is a good thing. The biggest thing on here, which again relates to why our budget is being proposed at over $100 million, includes the American Rescue Act funds, the ARPA funds, that have initiatives that have already been carved out through the proposed initiatives. And there's, of course, an ordinance that relates to having those funds transferred over first to the general fund as revenue replacement for classification purposes. And to turn it around then, that's the source of the money coming into the general fund, but now the outflow or expenditure of this, it's moving it all to the state grants fund, which is a good fund to utilize to accommodate these various initiatives that have been put forth for consideration for expenditure. So we've already utilized, an expenditure has already happened. You might recall earlier this year with the Fire Bureau. That's one of the initiatives in that particular ordinance for an upgrade of the radio system. And that approximated $1 million. I think it was $990,000. $200,000 of the ARPA funds also has been additionally transferred to the general fund, meant to support the administration of these particular programs as we go through next year with encumbering and expending these funds. So that's the $27.1 million that's in budget. Right below that, in account 481025 is $1 million That is also part of the ARPA funding, but that is the one initiative that relates to providing assistance on previous past due balances of trash billing, refuse and disposal. So the idea is to move that into the Neighborhood Services Fund where it can be properly accounted for and applied to those particular accounts that are in that type of status. That's also included in that ordinance that I referred to earlier. The 5.2 million references Fund 26, which is the Harrisburg Senators Fund. That is comprised of the multi-year FMB Field Stadium upgrade project. So we're budgeting 5.2 for this year as general fund funding. There's an additional amount that will be put forth for 2025. And the general fund is providing these initial funds, but there is also a RACP grant that's involved at $6 million through the administering with involving the Redevelopment Authority. So far, we have already transferred over to the Senators Fund 2.8 million. That was part of what we did presented at the recent reallocation request. The last item in transfers is to Fund 60, which is the Capital Projects Fund. It's 1.7 million, and again, this is supporting funding for the State Street project, which is been budgeted for next year. And this is included in the one schedule we did, which includes both revenue and expenditures for the Capital Projects Fund. So the total in transfers for next year is the approximately 36.3 million. And that's the summary for interfund transfers from the general fund.
Thank you. Are there any questions regarding that? Seeing none, feel free to move on to our next part.
All right. Okay. Debt service summary, again, this is good in terms of looking at prior year activity, much lower. And I mentioned the Verizon Commonwealth Tower debt. And the debt is the payment to make is the minimum contribution, the 1.250 million. This is the revenue. Tim, if you can you scroll down to expenditures, please? So again, the amounts for the bonds for the tower debt is 1.25 million. The other debt that the city has is through funding provided by the State Liquid Fuels Fund, which is approximately $224,000, and this is the next year for the Pennsylvania Infrastructure Bank loan that the city, it was initially it was a $2 million loan that the city received in proceeds, and it's a 10-year payback. And it was all about the Harrisburg paving project that happened approximately 5 years ago. So this is just the annual debt service of $224,000, and of course it includes principal and interest for next year. So it's just those two items for the debt service fund.
Any questions? Feel free to move on to the next fund.
All right. Did you, Marie? I was thinking of the Capital Projects Fund, which I've touched upon a little bit. And Marita, do you want to?
Yes, I just have to pull one from my budget.
Summarize that. Okay.
unfortunately, Brian and.
If you would use the microphone,
Oh, sorry.
please.
I'm
Thank you.
sorry. Brian and Dan Snow helped me to develop this, since Dan is our engineer. I'm sure Austin chimed in and gave us plenty of assistance as well. We have several projects on the horizon for 2024, mostly highway related. Mulder Square, that's a project we're completing, correct, with, that's an redevelopment authority project. And we're kind of doing the final payment on that project. The State Street project, which is the largest one, is, as Brian said, is being supported. And we are fortunate that, you know, most of that project will be funded by PennDOT since it is a PennDOT project, but we have a responsibility for the ADA walking paths and the striping, which is the signing for the streets that's on the streets. Now Dan and I, and Brian, I think, both believe that number's low for what we're predicting, but it's really impossible for us to tell until we have that official meeting with Kinsley and PennDOT. And that's coming up in the early winter, January or February. So we'll have a better perspective for that. But to be honest with you, we don't expect construction to really start until, would you say, Austin, not until mid-year? So we basically funded it for, you know, those final 6 months of the year. So we think that'll be sufficient to cover the ADA compliance and the striping for State Street. To be honest with you, Dan Snow can give you the best information. What I'm hoping is that we can come in when we have our meeting with PennDOT to really give you an excellent update. As soon as we are exiting that meeting, we'll schedule something with the council, of course, and the city clerk to try to get you a better update based on. But there just hasn't been a meeting for the last 3 months, not with the city that I know of, unless you know something. So it was about 3 months ago we had a meeting. It was basically, they're still in a holding pattern, PennDOT is still making decisions as to when things will commence. The Capitol Gateway, you may be familiar with that. That's Wallace Montgomery. They're actually doing a, you'll have to chime in here, Austin, when you get you. It's basically a safety project for the traffic signaling and other safety-related items coming in to the Forester Street and actually giving some really improved safety features. Do you want to give a little more information on that?
You guys weren't briefed on that at all before? Okay. Yeah, it's just some traffic safety upgrades that'll be done at the intersection of Front and Forester Street.
Right, and most of them have to do with signalization and so forth. And Wayne, who was our former engineer, is actually the lead on that project, and he remarkably has some excellent information on it. So we think that's going to be a win-win. It's largely funded by PennDOT, so we're very happy to get that multimodal money from PennDOT to get this funded. But I think, I mean, it's really PennDOT who drove this, because they're like, this signaling is not working. So that's why Wayne Martin, would have done some of the preliminary work before he left, and then Wallace Montgomery, by pure coincidence, was awarded it through a fair RFP. I don't even know if Wayne was with them when it was awarded. So that project's a pretty exciting project. I think everybody will be happy to see the results of more safe travels there at Forester Street at Front and that whole Front Street corridor. The Hearst Street Safety Project, I think you're all familiar with that. It's one of the mayor's, even when she was on council, was something she found very, very important to improve the safety and walkways. As you know, I think you know there was a fatal accident, and so this hopefully will improve that pathway and make it much more safer for vehicular traffic and pedestrian. The East-West Connection, this portion is DCD multimodal. DCD has extended our contract for us. It's largely going to involve Chestnut Street's multimodal, We're not sure if we're going to go the next step and involve Market. Originally, Market Street was involved, but it has more to do with safety, cycling, transportation, the hospitals there. So it's an older project that's been hanging on for a number of years, and we're kind of giving it rebirth with our new engineer and kind of moving it forward. And DCD's thrilled about that because it's finally getting off the ground and moving, and they've largely funded that. But we do have some contribution we need to make as part of our match. If I'm going too fast or too slow, please let me know. And the Urban Meadows project, this is one you're probably very familiar with. It's the new courthouse, and you know we already did some traffic calming up there. We're just going to take it all the way out to 7th Street. It should be really safe, clean, easy for pedestrians to walk, easily for cycling, and for families to walk path and be safe. As you know, there's more and more traffic up there with a lot of interesting things going on with Catherine Hershey and so forth. So those are the major projects. The next major piece are the city bridges. We've met with Dauphin County, who actually manages and oversees the bridges. There's only about 2 bridges on the list for this year. So fortunately, we are very fortunate that we're getting federal transportation funding, we're getting state transportation funding, we're getting county transportation funding, and if we can figure it all out, we'll get a bridge bundling package from the county, which further reduces our costs, so we'll end up paying like 20% out of the 100% cost. So about 80% of it's covered by the feds, the state, and twice by the county. So we are working with HRG. Austin and Dan met with HRG when Dan first started, and they went through all the 10 bridges, but to be honest with you, only 1 or 2 of them will be slated for execution. So fortunately, you can see there is other funding available. The funding sources transfer from the general fund, funding grant proceeds. Mulder Square has 2.3 proceeds. That's largely from RACP. I'm looking for the, and then the State Street is PennDOT, as I mentioned earlier. Capital Gateway is HATS, Harrisburg Area Transportation Study, which, by the way, your engineer is on that committee, and we're hoping to get other people appointed. $37,000 for the Hurst Street project. It's a small price to pay for the work we've already accomplished there. We're just continuing some great work. The $275,000 for East-West Connection, as I said earlier, is a PADC multimodal, and Urban Meadows is a PADCD multimodal. I'm most familiar with that because when I was at DCD, I helped to drive some of those actions and activities. It was kind of fun to see good things happening in Harrisburg for transportation. And that's, by the way, Commonwealth Financing Agency. You probably know that because you likely approved it, but just as a reminder. And then the City Bridges is largely those organizations I just explained to you will be helping to fund the activities there. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. And hopefully Austin will be too.
We also knocked the number down on those bridges by doing some of the stuff in-house.
That's correct. They did do a number of repairs this year in-house, and that made PennDOT very happy because they were starting to get a little testy with us. But luckily, and I will say Austin took the lead on that, and he did a fantastic job. Thank you, Austin.
Thank you. Any questions or comments regarding the Capital Projects Fund?
Just real quick on the Capital Gateway, that only takes into consideration the intersection at Front and Forester, correct? We're not looking at any of the other intersections along Forester Street, Commonwealth?
I don't believe so, but I can get the specifics for you. It
extends up to 2nd Street. They're going to widen the median.
I should have asked him, yelled at him, I'm sorry.
So it'll, reduce the lane sizes and make that median go up to 2nd and make it more of a turn lane that's more like called out instead of how it is now where it's just paint. When you come across there from the West Shore side, it's just paint and people do what they want to do in there. And so it's going to actually be concrete median with a turn lane. So.
Okay. All right,
like a safe zone for people to stand when they're crossing.
All right, perfect, yeah, because I know that.
Bump outs on each corners to shorten the distance between, when you're walking those crosswalks, shorten that crosswalk distance.
Okay.
So there's quite a few things
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, we can move on to the next fund.
Oh, very good. The next fund is our state liquid fuel fund, which is a revenue fund. Everyone knows where that revenue comes from, right? When we go to the gas tank and we go to fill the gas tank, it's our gas tax. So when it comes back to us, luckily, in the form of a grant, in the form of a formula. The formula is based on mileage within the city and population, I believe. I did work on that when I was at Revenue many years ago. I'm old as dirt, so there haven't been too many places I haven't worked. So it's always exciting to see the fact that they've given us some funding. We've been able to use a large chunk, as you can see, to fund street lights. And our lady and gentlemen that work at traffic and engineering and manage this, they do a marvelous job, and I think, we try to make sure anything that's burnt out is replaced or knocked out by an accident is replaced quickly. We also have our snow removal control is also funded there. This year, we're doing a huge chunk of change there for asphalt and concrete. Why? Out of here, because that's why your guys are paving internally, and that's going to save the city a lot of money versus going out to a contractor. So I thought you guys would be thrilled about that. A small amount for streetlights, small amount for traffic control. We do have the streets and roads, and then Brian mentioned the small debt service that we have in this fund. So I think you'll be pleased to know that I think your money will be well spent in the form of a grant, and we're very grateful to the Commonwealth for working with us to get a lot of paving done this coming year.
Thank you.
Any further questions on that?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, no, just real quick on, I was just looking at the actual numbers. So for actual on snow control, could we get what we've done in 2023? I know we mentioned the actual in 22, but if we can get any figures on 23, because it's still just based upon where we have been in previous years, just want to get a better sense of what we did in 23, because even at 175, we're still, well above what we were doing in 21 and 22, and given we've seen unfortunately for me, I do like the snow, but a reduction in just the amount of winter weather we've been receiving. Just want to know where we can get some of those actuals.
Yeah, we can get some actuals.
Right, thank you.
I know a lot of it is they purchase a chunk of change with the salt.
Right, they not have to use it, right.
So, but yes, of course, I think there's some equipment purchases too that happen.
Okay.
Because you never can anticipate whether you get,
Right.
30 inches of snow or 130. So,
Absolutely.
I know Dave West, who's been here forever, has done a marvelous job at doing projections, but we'll get the numbers for you. I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah.
Any further questions?
Any other questions? Seeing none, we can move on to the next fund.
So the host municipality, I think you know that we are the host for Covanta for the incinerator. And so as a host, they give us a nice little, a reward. And we try to use that money to help us with, salaries and wages for largely highways?
Sustainable
coordinator, okay.
The arborist and
Oh, that's right, it would be on the.
our
yeah,
recycling coordinator as
yeah,
well.
Yeah. And so that's great that we have that opportunity. We have some miscellaneous contracting, some miscellaneous expense, but by and large, it's, I think the detail's back here, if you want to go back to the detail. Obviously, the salary and wages for the sustainability and the arborists. I'm not sure exactly for the miscellaneous contracted for them. What would you say that? I know
this
that.
is more along the lines for Sasha, so she probably had some ideas that she has going on for that number.
And we can get you more information on that, if that'd be helpful.
Oh, it could be.
Oh, that is it, yes, tree trimming.
If not all of it, the majority of that 152 relates to that type of maintenance service.
Tree trimming, for, especially for safety purposes, wherever, he is correct. I don't have all my notes with me, but thank you, Mr. Grover, for saving the day. He is correct. And then the other 12,000 is related to that same topic for various supplies for those trucks and so forth that are used, and other pieces of equipment that are used for executing. The grants to local units, is that the CAGA?
Yes. Yeah, that's a continuation, capital area greenbelt, the work they do. And the distribution from this fund fits that work, or that initiative that they do.
And we did bring that before you.
Excuse
for
me,
approval.
can you please speak into the microphone so
sure,
it's
I'm
clear?
sorry.
No, not Mr. McCutcheon.
Oh, okay,
Yes,
that's fine.
you were sharing a little bit more detail, so I didn't want that to be missed.
No, thank you. Yeah, capital area green belts, the distribution to, grants to local units. Again, it's like an environmental type initiative, and it's a continuation from prior years where this fund has provided such a grant distribution for that organization. And I guess while I'm still talking, Tim, like the total expenditures for this fund, it's a little over 400,000. And again, Marita mentioned the fee that we get, and that it comes from the authority, from Lancaster County Solid Waste. Sorry. Yeah, Lexwama. It's very consistent. It's grown. It's probably closer to $95,000 every quarter. It's between 90 and 95, but it continues to increase over recent years. So, along with that funding, there's also interest income within this fund. So that's how we get to the total expenditures for the host fund.
And I'll try to remember to switch it back over to. Sometimes we have more mics here, that's why I'm a little confused, sorry.
Any questions?
Okay, the next fund would be the Senator's Fund, which Tim will be bringing up here in a second. Brian already explained this, that the revenues are coming in from the, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks. Typically, prior to this project to do the upgrade of the stadium, the primary revenue sources for this fund include the stadium rent, which approximates $379,000 annually from the senators. And the city also gets parking-related revenue, naming rights-related revenue, which fluctuates, but it can be anywhere between $40,000 and $55,000 annually. So that's being budgeted again for next year. But then also the interfund support from the general fund, the $5.2 million, and coupled with the existing cash balance within this fund is what was reviewed and determined to go forward with the stadium improvement upgrade. So we will again, when it comes time next year for the 2025 budget, it's been laid out in the same presentation. Those two revenue items would be expected to be there, and then also the funding from the general fund support. And in 2025 is when the city anticipates receiving in full the RCAP grant, and from the Office of the Comptroller, through the Commonwealth, through the Redevelopment Authority. And at that point, at the end of the project in 2025, once the project is completed, the general fund can start to be reimbursed in 2025, including the RACP, and then of course the continued revenue flow from the senators, namely the stadium rent and the parking-related revenue. So it's all about the upgrade project for this fund for next year.
Any questions?
No, okay. All right. In the book, I think we turn to the incinerator disposal fund. Like the old sanitation fund, this is an older fund which used to be active, and well, it actually still is, but it includes currently revenue tends to come in tied to liens that are still existing in the city's lien system. So properly is when the liens were set up, they were set up tied to these older two funds, sanitation and the disposal fund. So the city continues to collect these payments. And back when the neighborhood services fund was formed, a large piece of the available cash in both sanitation and disposal funds was transferred over to create the starting point for neighborhood services. We did leave a portion of cash in that fund. So you're seeing what from long ago, what is still sitting there. So the idea is to utilize this cash to bring it forward and to transfer it into the neighborhood services fund where it belongs and where it can serve to support the operations of that fund. So this is simply an interfund transfer that will be done from this particular fund to the neighborhood services fund as a revenue source for that fund.
Okay, any questions? The Blight Remediation Fund is the next fund. I'm going to explain the revenue portion first. That might make a little more sense to you. Probably next year, maybe we'll reverse those pages, but at any rate, the revenue source largely you can see is from recycling, revenue demolition, the mitigation fees, building permits, and the vacant property registry. So the total revenue for the blight remediation is $77,368 for 2024. You can see it's kind of in line with the historical revenue income. And then if you could go to the expenditure side now, Tim, please. For expenditures, the miscellaneous contracted services is all for blight remediation when we have to contract out the services when it's something beyond our own internal blight remediation team, and also supplies and equipment related to both, including minor equipment. So we feel fortunate that we have this revenue to at least deal with some of our extraordinary blight-related issues. It's not perfect, but at least it's a source of income that we can use and is managed well by Mr. West and Mr. Griffin. And there's a little more detail in the blight remediation. Again, as you go through the contracted services, the 429,090, and the miscellaneous supplies and expenses, 12,343, which is 430,099, and then the miscellaneous minor equipment. And again, there's a little more detail on page 271, where it outlines, the salvage, the permit penalty, and the foreclosure property registry. So hopefully that gives you some information on how we're able to manage the blight remediation fund for the additional revenue that we receive.
Thank you. Any questions?
And Brian will discuss the special events project and reimbursement fund.
All right. Right, long name on this fund. It's public works oriented, and the revenue is in recent times, it has been reduced. We haven't had that much activity. But the primary revenue source is recycling. The one thing that comes to mind is the one company that recycled cardboard, Harrisburg Waste Paper Company. I think they have transitioned in recent times or were taken over by a different operating entity. But we haven't received much activity this year, so we thought it'd be best to reflect that going forward into 2024. The expenses, Tim, if you go down, include, the main thing here is an interfund transfer to the Neighborhood Services Fund. It's, again, this fund is public works in nature. In fact, maybe like sort of a preview of all these funds. These are all, they get referred to as special funds. Marita just described the blight remediation, which I think sometimes it's also referred to as neighborhood mitigation. I think of that as it relates to codes. Again, this one is public works. And then, of course, we have like fire protection, police protection, Parks and Rec, the WHBG TV fund, and finally the events fund. So, Vice President Green, I'm not trying to jump ahead. I just want, these are all special funds in nature. They're not really special revenue funds because in our audited financial statements, they all end up being classified within the general fund. They're not part of the general fund's budget, but because they have their own separate, they stand alone, they have their own budget, but they don't meet the test to be classified as a special revenue fund like the liquid fuels fund or the host fund. But they serve the identification purpose of why they're out there. And again, they relate to basically all of the city's different departments. So again, this is public works and driven, and the idea is to lend more support to the Neighborhood Services Fund by providing this interfund funding from this particular fund. And this fund, and I should have led off with this, it's special project events. Mainly that means that when our public works team or crews need to get together to prepare something for some event, maybe it's for a concert or maybe for a parade or some outdoor event that they have to come together to piece it together. That's what it was designed for, and I think the idea was to have this recycling revenue to help support that, plus contributions that have flowed into this fund to support Public Works efforts in doing that extra work. So that's this fund.
Any questions?
Okay, the next fund is the Fire Protection Fund. Again, we'll go to the revenue first. As you can see, there's not a lot of revenue activity at this moment. There's some interest on the investments. As you know, interest has been at least pretty healthy in terms of income. There's some rental income, but largely it has a decent sum of money. So we're using some of the cash carryover, $72,000, to cover the cost. The costs are largely related to training for firefighters. There's also some minor equipment and building improvements. These are for the 3 firehouses. The fire chief could give you the specifics on it, but as you know, when you're running any kind of a house, there's always need for repair and equipment. This would include roofing, the garage doors, the bay doors, the sleeping quarters, and so forth. So the fire chief feels fortunate to have this money available to support the firehouses and the firefighters, and we're just glad that we have an opportunity to utilize that. As you can see, both of them are balanced because it's $100,000 in revenue from the 2 estimated cash carryovers from the SHARP team and from the urban research team. I said that rescue team, I meant to say. And then the expenditures, which I outlined, is a total of 100,000.
Any questions? Seeing none.
And again, I'll go to the revenue page. I realize it's behind the expenditure page, but we'll go there first. For fire protection, police protection, similar concept. The revenue. My pages are sticking together. So the revenue, which is on page 287 for the benefit of those viewing, the PA State Police reimburses us for our state police training. God bless Jen, she does the reimbursements and makes sure that all the paperwork is properly filed. That's Jen Cameron, who works for the commissioner. And then, of course, again, some hefty interest. Thank the Lord for that. And then we have the police projects, contributions and donations, and estimated cash carryover for a total revenue of $104,059. And then we have identical expenditures for the tuition training for this year, which we had fewer cadets. That's why the number's a little bit lower at $96,059. And then some additional education booklets and items, and then some minor software for a total of $104,59. Again, small revenue source dedicated for the purposes of police training. And there's a little more detail behind this in terms of tuition and training, education, and software. And there's a little more information on 289 concerning the police training revenue of $96,059 and the tuition expenses $96,059. They equal each other because that's how we seek our reimbursement. And then the police projects, a little bit of money trickling in there for contributions and donations, with cash care of $3,000, giving us total $8,000. And then you can see where they do some educational and software purchases for the police cadets.
Any questions?
I have to say that we have a zealot with Sasha Ross for the Parks and Recreation money. She's very dedicated to wanting to improve City Island, particularly the decking in City Island. And so if we go to the revenue sources, you can see that we have the parks permit fees of $70,000, interest on investments of $17,000, rental income of $35,000, and estimated cash carryover $167,000 for a total of City Island revenue of $288,500. Some smaller projects on Reservoir Park, as we have pumped a lot of money into Reservoir Park over the couple of years with chutes and ladders, so it's a little smaller of a focus. But as you can see on the expenditure side, which is on page 292, they're largely working towards the improvement of the decking on City Island. And can you remind me of the interfund transfer?
Again, this is similar to what I talked about on the special projects events fund, interfund support to the neighborhood services fund. This is similar for that particular fund because of the tie-in to some of the work that impacts public works on the parks and recreation side. This particular amount is again based on a review of prior year activity, and it's been put forth as a request for '24 to add more support to neighborhood services fund.
And then, as I mentioned, when I spoke with Ms. Ross, and she and I worked on this together, she's very interested in making sure that we're able to get some repairs to City Island, particularly the decking. She'll need more money, but this is a good start, and she's very enthusiastic about moving that project forward. If you
Thank
have
you.
any other questions, though, please let me know.
Any questions? No questions.
The next fund is just a tiny fund. It's largely the cash carryover of $1,000 and the interest on investments of $640. So for revenue for the WHBG TV fund is $1,640, and the expenditures. I told Matt that he could go home on this one because it's such a tiny fund. But largely, he says for the radio station, TV station, they do need some supplies and some minor supplies and some equipment, some office equipment. But also, they also have some tuition and training in there for Matt's staff. It's a relatively small and complicated fund.
Any questions? No questions.
The last fund, I did spend a good deal time working with the special events team. They're a great team, and you can see their income is coming from other licenses and permits, which you saw that Mike Hughes and his team collect. The interest on investments, one healthy thing this year is good interest on investments. And then contributions and donations of $198,000. And Courtney made it clear to me that in the past, the three major events, the 4th of July, Capona, and the Christmas events, I think it's I'm sorry, fireworks is the other one, sorry. They were largely separated, and she felt it didn't really make sense because depending on the circumstances with the weather and the various issues and so forth with the events, she felt that it would make more sense for her to have that all in one line item. That's why you see it. In the past, you can see where it was separated out, and she said it just made a bigger challenge where she had to do all sorts of transfers on this tiny fund, like 3 or 4 times a year. So she just asked me if I would put the entire amount for under miscellaneous contracted services for the events, and that's the $325,000. And then there's some minor money for miscellaneous supplies and expense. So their revenue is $367,000, and their expenditure is $367,000. As you can see, the revenues are largely driven by donations. So the whole concept of donations is to give back to your community through these wonderful events. You know, she does a terrific job with herself and her team, and she was very helpful in cooperating and providing information to me. And that's the end of our special funds. As you can see, as Brian explained, it's usually a dedicated source of revenue that's dedicated for a source of source for activity like fire, police, and special events. But if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them. Because I know it's things the three of us do all day, every day, and we understand it implicitly, but we can't expect everybody to have the understanding we have on these kind of unique funds. So thank you for your time and energy, and we really appreciate it, the finance team and Chair Green and President Bowers and the rest of the council. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you being here tonight. I appreciate the presentation. Are there any questions on any of these special funds or any questions?
Just on the special funds, could we get some of the actuals for 23, since I know we, most of the larger events have already been accomplished for this year, have already been completed for this year.
Do you want it for all special fund?
For the events fund.
Events. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you all again. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your hard work on the budget and the presentations and bearing with us as we work through it.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
With that, I believe that is all of the committee business for the Budget and Finance Committee. I will turn it over to President Bowers.
Okay, thank you very much. At this time, we'll move forward with our meeting agenda with public comment. Just a few housekeeping notes before we begin. Please state your name and address for the meeting record. If you don't feel comfortable sharing your address, please share the vicinity in which you live within the city. You'll have 2 minutes to share your comments. Mr. Truesdale will serve as our timekeeper. I'll begin to my right. Is there anyone that would like to offer public comment?
Helps when you turn it off. Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. I'm Pam Auer. I live on 124. I live in the building 124 Pine Street. And just wanted to ask, we've been a long year of working on access and trying to educate and hopefully get some information on the plan that the city has for ADA. Tonight I heard for the first time that there is plans that have gone back since 2019. There are supposed to be some detailed plans on ADA things that are going to be done. The one young woman who talked about the funding said something about ADA plans, and I'd love to be able to see them. We've asked for any kind of information related to plans or priorities for what needs to be done in this building, in the city, anywhere. So just so we can comment to it, because if you have a plan that was done in 2019, you know, priorities could be different. The people who might have laid out the information about it, you know, ADA regulations change over the years, and we just want to be a partner. I just want to be able to be a partner, and I work for Center for Independent Living of Central PA, and we want to too work to make sure that the things are getting done that are in the most cost-effective way, and that will benefit the residents of Harrisburg when coming to City Hall. So if somebody can help me with that, that would be great. And I just wanted to thank you all for this year really hearing me. This is the first time I've really felt heard on access issues in a long time, and it made doing my job a lot better. You know, when you're an advocate, sometimes you could be talking and talking and talking and really feel like nobody even cares. So I want to thank you all, City Council, for really hearing what I've had to say this year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else to my right that would like to offer public comment?
Pam Parson, 18th and Holly Street. Just a couple of things. Tonight's discussion about the contract with the Humane Society made me think about dog license. Going back 15, maybe 20 years ago, it goes back to the Reid administration, there was the creation of a city dog license program because they wanted to license dangerous dogs, which is actually kind of silly because if you have a dangerous dog, you're not necessarily going to license it. And it's kind of a hassle to get a license from the city. So I'm just suggesting that perhaps the city would consider dropping that program and just going back to the county where there's various places where you can drop in and get a dog license. And it's really pretty easy. The application is online, and the fees are based upon whether or not you have a dog that's spayed or not. And that just seems to make more sense than fees based on dangerous or not dangerous with no definition of dangerous. The second thing is I'd just like to remind you that when we talk about Channel 20, that does not belong to the city. That is community access television. And just because no one has come forth and said, we'd like to put on a program, doesn't mean that that isn't available to residents, that's how that station got formed, and their community access community access channels all over the country. And so it's just helpful to remind you all that that belongs to the community, not the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the middle section that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one. Anyone to my left? Seeing and hearing no one. Vice President Green, any next steps for next week?
I would ask as council members review over the budget, if there are any amendments that you're thinking about, if you could just try to get them to myself and the city council clerk by Sunday, just so we have some time to kind of combine them together so you don't have repetitive potential amendments. Next week on Tuesday, we will have a legislative session, and that is where we do plan to vote on the budget and make any amendments to the budget. And I think that's about it.
Thank you. If there's no further discussion, the time is 9:21 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We stand adjourned.